are live.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Hey,
What's
what's up,
up,
guys?
guys?
How you doing?
Here's the new.
Nice.
Welcome, guys. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of Almost Patriots podcast. I am your host, Rico, here in San Diego. I'm joined by my two comrades. I'm just kidding. My two friends, Mike in New York and Chris in Indianapolis, as usual. What's up, guys?
Hola. How you
Hey,
guys
what's
doing?
up, Ricardo? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Hey, what's up, Ricardo? What's up, Ricardo? Chilling. Doing good, guys. So big week this week. We got let's see, what do we got coming up? Halloween is coming up, and we have
Yankees, Dodgers,
that's right. Did you guys
World
catch?
Series.
Hey, baby! I love it. I love it.
I think we got to come to New York. I mean, I think that's the way to do it.
Absolutely.
Did you guys see the last game where what was I going to say? Where was it Dave Justice who hit that home run? Not
David Justice, are you going back?
No, who's the guy from? All the Yankees look the same, Mike. They're all clean shaven
Uh,
and they're yellow.
His name was Juan Soto.
Oh,
His
that's
name's
right,
Juan Soto.
Right.
Not David Justice. David Justice played for the Yankees and the Guardians, both teams. But yeah, I watched the game. The heartbreaking game for me was Game 4. The night that we were talking, at the time of our last podcast, it was painful because the Yankees, I felt like, had that one in the bag. And as a baseball player, it's kind of hard to lose momentum like that. Sometimes that following game, you get into a little bit of a funk. However, I got to be honest with you, the Yankees lineup this year is different. Soto brings a completely different dynamic to that team. And he just why he's one of the best young stars of the game. And he's definitely going to be rewarded this offseason with a massive contract. Now, the question is, are the Yankees going to match that or else?
That's interesting because he was here with San Diego. I know we picked him up. I remember I liked him. I thought he was a pretty good pickup, but he didn't. They had the batting lineup, but didn't quite really perform exactly the same way that it was expected. And then I feel like now with the Yankees, there must just be a little bit better fit there. But I mean, he killed it.
Well, I can tell you as a baseball player, ex-college baseball player, and having several friends that are in the major leagues. A couple of them left. They retired, and there's about 3 or 4 that I still know in the major leagues. I can tell you, San Diego Padres Stadium has been historically known to be a pitcher's park, not a hitter's park. It's tough, especially also one of the things in baseball is people don't understand the dynamic of how lineups are set. So Padres had a stacked lineup when it comes to players, but you have to find the right mold and fit. So you have to put somebody before him that protects him, but you also have to put somebody behind him that protects him. And it's not about home runs. It could be a guy that hits for average. It could be a guy that drives runs in. It could be a guy that gets on base. It all depends. So, he's always performed. He's always played well. I just think right now the dynamic of Yankee Stadium, the dimensions of it, but also having Judge and also having Stanton, behind him, in front of him, and other players, it's success, and it's shown this year.
What do you think, Chris?
I mean, I feel like it would be interesting to see. The market's insane, right? I mean, LA and New York in the World Series. That's the money is going to be like raining for this World Series. It should be interesting to see. Both those markets have a massive audience, so probably one of the most watched World Series that we see in our lifetime, anyways.
And one of the most expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tickets shot up to like $1,400 like overnight.
Yep.
For each game.
Yeah.
That's one seat.
Yeah, for one seat.
Yeah, one seat. Yeah, it's out of control, the price point. But it's gonna be I think a good series. I have my bias towards the Yankees. Obviously, I think in the World Series, I think they have the pieces. Dodgers though are coming in hot, so it's gonna be a good series. but I can never go. I got to go with the Yankees, and I'm going to probably go with the Yankees in 6. But we'll see.
Nice.
What I'm hoping to. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was really hoping to see is what we've seen so far in the playoffs is relatively high scoring games. There haven't been a lot of like 109 innings. Everybody's like, oh my God, can we just get out of here? We've been seeing 8, 9 runs.
Yeah.
And even like the other teams also putting up 4 or 5. So you're seeing like a lot of people on base and a lot of things happening, which is good for the sport, right? Nobody wants to watch 10 innings of scoreless play and then somebody, hits a RBI and the game's over. It's like a 1 score in 3.5 hours, whatever it is. So I don't foresee that being.
This year, usually in the past, playoff baseball has been about pitching, not hitting. This year, it's been the complete opposite. It's about hitting, putting runs up, which is awesome. I think you're going to see a lot of runs scored in these games. I think, starting pitching wise, Yankees starting pitching, especially some of the starters from the Guardian series, especially Rodon. He had an up and down year where he started out really strong and he performed to his contract, but then he went through a little bit of a rut, and he's typically had that in past years. But in the playoffs, I got to be honest, his series against the Guardians was phenomenal. He pitched amazing. It's going to be like that. So it's the first time Yankees been in the World 2009. They should have been there a couple of years in a row, but there's a cheating scandal that robbed us of being in the World Series, courtesy of the Astros, which I'm still pissed off about. But it's finally good to be back. It's finally good to be there. And what people don't understand, and you have to understand this as part of New York's blood, is the competitive, always wanting to. So the series for us means a lot. Every time you win the World Series, it's a pride thing, and that's why New Yorkers are so invested in their sports. That's why when the Knicks are horrible, it hurts us. That's why when the Rangers are not performing, that's why it's a pride thing, especially when it comes to football too, as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was pretty amazing having to stop into Brooklyn and being able to check out one of the games there with my buddy Jeff and some of the crew that we had out there for the show. It was just, I loved like getting off the subway and then you're like under a subway bridge and then like you walk into the stadium and it's just like, it's almost like this huge, I want to call it like a piazza, that they've created inside this urban scape, right? And I also love that everyone's coming together for like something positive, right? And it's like, I love that it's like, it's sport, which is basically like competition with rules, right? And so like, I like that. And just the tradition. And I know it was newly redone. Jeff was mentioning that to me, that they had like kind of revamped it or something. So I hadn't seen it before.
They built a brand new stadium. So this is what I tell a lot of people that have never experienced the old stadium. New York was made, that old stadium, like the teams, the success was made by that stadium because it was affordable. You could go to games and the crowd, it was diverse. The new stadium, a lot of criticisms about. I think it's nicer. I think it's cleaner, but you lost a fan base because it's so priced out of control depending on who you're playing. So it's more about a corporate stadium, which because it kind of lost the feeling of the Bronx. Like, the unique thing about the Yankees for years was when you go into the stadium, the diversity of the fans, you knew what you were getting. It was like a connection from everybody. It was, you could get lucky guy from Wall Street to the, poverty-stricken, demographic, the stadium and you're together rooting on the Yankees. So that was the beauty. Now the stadium, like these playoff tickets, like back I'm going where it was like, Flavor Flav was in the section next to us and 2 rows in front of him with 4 guys. They weren't, like, the demographic was just completely different from all the people around you. You had a nice mesh of everybody. Now it's like you go section, hey, these are the corporate elites. And then you're still in that section. You don't have diversity. You have people that just have wealth and money. And I still have a I have a grift with the stadium just in general. I miss the old stadium in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, sorry.
No, go ahead, bud.
I was gonna say, how long do you think that's gonna last? I mean, because typically, I build a new stadium and you gotta, wait 5 years or so before you actually start making any money. So, like, are they
The
gonna
stadium's
maybe
going to
lower
be
price?
the stadium is going to be around there for a while. The one thing about New York, a part of business is taking clients to games. So the one thing they did when they opened the stadium, which was atrocious, which I'll never forget, is season ticket holders. What they tried to do was they tried to charge a fee, and then on top of the fee, then you had to pay for the season tickets. And it was like you had a license for those tickets, and it was just like, okay, this is you never needed that in the past. So they got a lot of pushback on that. They weren't getting the money, but that's just the nature of it. That's a while. It's new. It's been there. They do a great job of keeping it the way it is, but it's like all the newer stadium. It's going to be around for a while. And I just don't see it ever getting knocked down again for another 30, 40, 50 years. That's just the
No,
nature of it.
but I mean, like, you think ticket prices won't go down eventually once everything's paid for?
I have a really good
No,
question.
and
Yeah.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so because you got to remember the prices for players are going up. First of all, nobody talks about the cost in the stadium for beers and stuff like that.
Well,
It's
yeah,
extremely expensive.
everything's inflation
Um,
and all
the
crap is.
so one of the unique things is you find ways to get around the prices, like the bleacher seats. You can wait until the first inning. You can buy tickets, which dramatically lower. But during the season, it's pricey, but it's nothing too crazy to the point where you can't afford it. But when it comes to playoff baseball, it gets really, really expensive.
Right.
So, like, one thing I noticed too, and I was at least out here for the Petco Stadium, they have watch parties like at Petco Park, on like the big screen, and you can like go in and bring your family or like your hot dog stand or whatever you want to bring in there. But Jeff was telling me that like it's still the same price for all the concessions, and like people were really getting annoyed with that. It's like I'm going to the stadium to watch the game and I'm paying $17 for a beer, and so like
Mhm.
there was a big kind of a should there be some sort of backlash against the stadiums to offer experiences for fans that maybe can't make it to like the game, but maybe if they want to come and watch the away games and they start selling stuff a little bit lower, wouldn't that reach that sort of lower demographic? What do you think about that?
I think so. Around Yankee Stadium, there's Billy's. There's a bunch of bars right there that you can watch the games. The prices in there
They're the same. They're
it's not cheap. I think away games. I'm not aware of it because I never went to the stadium where you can watch a away game on the jumbotron. But I agree with you. There has to be an option to watch those games that is cheaper, to say the least.
yeah, like together with
But
fans.
yeah, but there's realistically the stadium sells packages that are very interesting. So you have the Audi Club membership. You have other membership clubs where it lets you into exclusive areas and suites and stuff like that. And they get more expensive. And to get into certain areas, it's just like a family. I always say this: a family of four going to a Yankee game, depending on where you sit, because that is a key component here, run into the 6, 7, 800 like range a family of four. If you're trying to take your kids to a game, you don't want to sit in certain areas to watch the game so you can't see the game. But when you throw in hot dogs, when you throw in chicken tenders, when you throw in if you're having drinks, or it does get costly. And going back to your point about San Diego needs to charge their fans a little bit more because their TV contract is one of, if I remember correctly, one of the worst in baseball. So
Mm-hmm.
they need to generate revenue somehow, some way. Yankees are different. They own Yes Network. They make money off of merchandising, concessions, ticket sales. It's a completely different story. Yankees payroll is very high as well.
Well, different
So no,
market. I mean,
they're
there's 12 million
completely different
people in New
market.
York City and 3 million in San Diego.
What's the nearest baseball team to you, Chris?
Mm-hmm,
Oh,
sure.
look at those wide eyes.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a minor league team here, but I can't even tell you what the name is.
Yeah, they're building a stadium. Speaking of minor league stuff, up here in Oceanside, like a really nice new stadium,
Really?
and I think yeah, it's going to be. I looked it up last night. I believe for the Major League Soccer team, the FC 1904, and then the Clippers. They just announced that their G League team is going to be doing their games at that stadium in Oceanside.
Hmm.
So we're going to
Oh
have
wow.
access. Yeah, so it's going to be pretty cool. And we were just talking about it last night because we were watching the Clippers play Phoenix last night for their opening game, which Phoenix won. Yes. And I like KD, man. I'm a KD fan. He's got great
Me
shoes.
too.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And for some reason, as much as I don't have anything against the Clippers and I respect the gentleman, but I feel like Harden rubs me the wrong way for some reason. He just kind of
Oh yeah.
rubs me, dude. Like I feel like if you met him, he'd be a dick. And then I don't know, but he just has that look. So I don't love Harden, and I like to root against him because I can tell he gets really frustrated. But but the
Yeah. San
WNBA,
Diego.
I'm sorry, the G League team for the Clippers would be great for San Diego. I mean, we only have the baseball team, so I mean, out here we're thirsting, and going to
Yeah.
LA
It's a
right now,
travesty.
it's like kind of like going to Beirut. So it's like you have like these different like risks, and it takes forever, and like I always see cars on fire, so like it's a different market like altogether.
Traffic's brutal
Yeah.
that way.
Traffic's
Yeah.
probably
Well,
brutal, yeah.
yeah. One of the things that bothers me still to this day was the Chargers leaving. Like I think, I understand why Spano left. The Chargers left San Diego, but then again, I get a little frustrated. The Chargers were in San Diego for how long? The stadium that they were playing in was old. They needed a new stadium. Now you can argue against tax breaks. You can argue it against helping the team pay for a team. Excuse me, a new stadium. You can argue for those causes, but I feel like when the Chargers left San Diego, that was a blow to a lot of those fans because you were going from San Diego to LA, and
Right.
that is, nobody talks about this, but San Diego and LA are in sports are not the friendliest. You've seen the San Diego Padres fans getting in fights with the Los Angeles Dodgers fans. There's a little
There's a
bit of bad blood
rivalry.
there. So
Yeah.
yeah, so having the Chargers leave San Diego to go not too far up the street to basically Los Angeles is like a dagger in the heart. And I just think that was till this day, I think that was an atrocious move. I think the NFL did a horrible job, especially Goodell, with making or allowing them to leave to go to Los Angeles, which makes no sense. And I still to this day think Spano has accountability there, especially with how the fans felt afterwards. And his kind of letter to the team was ridiculous. It reminds me of like all the teams leaving Oakland now, going to Las Vegas. Like
Yeah.
the Oakland Athletics owner has not even come out and talked to any fans. Hasn't even he's sent a letter out, which was like the most BS like kind of letter of all time. It's you're taking a team that's been there, that's won World Series, that is the heart and soul of that town in a lot of areas, and you're come on, like, at least give your fans like talk with them, explain this. Now that's another atrocious move. I get it, they're trying to get the market, but you are really really lacking in kind of your fan base and an awareness, and you hiding behind and the screen and the office and not even talking to people or even going on TV explaining your decision. Forget about that. That's a cowardly move.
Yeah, that's become commonplace. That's a good point. I mean, Oakland
Yeah.
specifically, is a city I think that, there's a lot of culture there, and it's all different types of culture. And, with a town like that, something like a sports team, kind of reminds me almost like of the Cubs or something like that, man, where you just like,
Mhm.
hey, man, like I could go around my neighborhood and like break stuff, or I could like go to the baseball game. And now that there's no baseball game, there's like this vacuum there that like it was something positive that was bringing the community together.
Well, take the baseball team away, they lost their football team too, the Raiders.
I
Like,
I know.
like it went from being the Oakland Raiders and the Oakland Athletics now to Vegas Raiders Athletics, and it's just like, what are we doing? It's
Yeah,
like it's ridiculous.
yeah. My buddy Brian went up to the stadium, and he said the stadium was beautiful. I'd like to see it, but the way he described it was kind of like, like Sodom and Gomorrah. He was like, "Oh man, there's like bars everywhere. Tiesto is DJing like during halftime." And I was like, "Well, what about the football? You know what I'm saying? Like, what about the whole point of the game?" So, in true Vegas fashion, I think they pimped that stadium out. I mean, it does look beautiful. I haven't set boots on the ground there, but I'd like to check it out for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
part of the problem is California. So like, my company, we used to have one of our biggest rebuild facilities that in the U.S. was in Oakland, and we shut it down a couple years ago. Moved it to a third party vendor that does it now in Tennessee because it's way cheaper. And there's only I just looked just because I was curious. There's only 500,000 people in Oakland, and I wouldn't be surprised if
Mhm.
that number has been on the decline as opposed to like some of the other
Dude,
cities in
there's only
California.
650,000 people in San Francisco. I mean, you think it's like this big city, but it is not big.
Well, how big was it a few years ago before COVID? I mean, that's kind of the other, I
Yeah.
didn't look, but I mean that's the question, right? So like you got these, like if it was me, right? If I was going to own a sports team in a small market like that, I'd be spending all my time and money on developing the city and making it bigger, like bringing other things other than my sport team into the city because you know when you look around and you see that in the last decade, LA has increased by a massive size, right? It's now the biggest city by a wide margin. It's bigger than New York City by a few million people, right? So, and that has taken
Los
time.
Angeles County, you mean? Yeah, Los
Yeah.
Angeles County, not the
Yeah,
city itself.
Yeah, Los
Mhm.
Angeles County.
it's got 17 million people in that small little area. Yeah, I mean, I know
Mhm.
New York City is probably like physical city size might be bigger, but the population size,
Well, it's more dense. There's
yeah.
more
Yeah.
people because they build up.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's
Well,
just,
well, I just
I was just saying, it's just
go ahead.
it's a growing city, and like some of the other cities in California are getting bigger, like San Diego, LA. Some of the
Mhm.
I don't think Oakland's on the list, and if it is, it's not getting big enough fast enough because Vegas is getting bigger. I mean,
Of course.
so that's on the team ownership and the people of Oakland, and I'm not talking about like the people themselves, but I'm talking about like, businesses. If you're not bringing in more people, more businesses, then it's hard to imagine that people aren't going to leave and go to bigger markets.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I,
so I'll play the devil's advocate on that because the Golden State Warriors are there and they're very profitable. You have the San Francisco 49ers there that are very profitable and people love them. Those are brands, right? So everybody shows out for those teams and spend money. The Golden State Warriors did it a little bit differently, where they made basically a complex around their stadium,
oh,
and
dude,
it entices people to come. Oakland Athletics tried to do something similar. I don't remember what the reasoning was, but I think the city council had problems with the permitting and it was taking too long. That's why Oakland decided to move. I think it was also I think it was also uh, they use it as a scapegoat to leave as well.
yeah,
I think
that
it's
makes
just a very hard. I think you're right in a certain perspective where you have to agree. You have to have economic development and helping with the fan base and the money aspect. But I also think though there was a fan base there. I also think there was enough supporting areas like around there for fans to go and enjoy because okay, Oakland's only so big, but you have downtown San Francisco, you have that whole region there that people are still going to go and spend money.
I would love to do like which stadium has the cheapest and best hot dog. Best hot dog, cheapest hot dog. Like best hot dog for your money. All I know, when we went to Yankee Stadium, Jeff bought this hot dog. It was fucking like this long, dude. It was like the
What was that,
longest hot dog.
$14?
I don't remember. I didn't ask, but he had like the bun and the thing. And I mean, he looked like he was 11. He was like the look on his face. He was so happy that he had gotten that hot dog. I was a little envious. It looked pretty good. But like, I'd be interested to see if that's a good moniker or a good indicator of like whether or not how they treat their fans. Hey, look, we'll charge you $15 for a beer, but like we have the stadium dog, and the stadium dog is always going to be $5, right? And that way, even if you're not getting wasted or buying, like I saw some motherfucker cooking like a steak at the Yankee Stadium, like it was like, you know what I mean? And we went to Indianapolis, they were making like all these fancy things. I'm like, how about just $5 hot dogs? How about, and
Yeah,
then everything else can be expensive.
but that also requires, somebody in the marketing department that gives a crap. I mean, like they don't care. All they see is like, hey, look, it costs $12 to get a hot dog in the stadium. How are we gonna make money off of it? They don't really care about all that stuff. Like when what do you say when we went to that movie? We saw a Bond, right? And you were like, I can't believe nobody has like the Bond drink,
Martini, man.
the Bond martini. I was like, oh my god, it's genius! Like you gotta have that, right? But it's the same thing. Like and nobody's going around being like, how can we change the marketing on these hot dogs? And it's like they're just like, yeah, whatever,
Good point.
money. We're just making money.
Good point.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, very good point. Well, this is a good segue into our first topic. We'll start with one of Mike's topics, and since we're talking about sports already, guys. And Mike's topic is the WNBA Players Union. What's going on with these guys, Mike? Let us know.
So they opted out of the collective bargaining agreement. So there's a lot of the players believe that they should be making more money based on the revenue that's coming into the league. They make currently, I think it's 9.3% of the revenue that's coming into the league. So I'm tossed up on this, and I'll explain why. First, the WNBA is projected to lose, I believe it's $40 million this year.
40 million.
Okay.
40 billion?
40 million. 40 million. 40 million. So it's a decrease from last year, because last year they lost 50 million. This year, 40 million.
So it's an improvement.
The popularity, it's an improvement. The popularity of the game, courtesy of certain players, went through the roof. Ticket sales went through the roof. Attendance went through the roof.
Yeah, Chris went to see
on TV.
Chris went to see Caitlin Clark play, right? Didn't you go? Was it fun?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it was awesome. It was electric.
Yeah. We watched the Minnesota here. The Minnesota, what's the Minnesota team or whatever?
I watched them play the Seattle, whatever that team.
I feel like they're working harder than the boys, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I think so. So I will say this: I've watched a couple of games this year. I was curious to see Caitlin Clark. I watched her in college. I enjoyed it. I thought she brings it. She reminds me a lot of Steph Curry in an aspect where she's a heavily offensive player, and she excites with the fact that she can score points, get her teammates involved, and she shoots threes basically from half court and makes them. So I watched several games. I enjoyed the games, but when it comes to the WNBA and the players opting out, I'm conflicted because, things that sports are based on revenue, right? Making money, profit.
But
you earn
Mike,
what you.
What is it? Just for some of the viewers, and like myself, I know you're very savvy, Mike. But what does it mean that they opted out of the collective bargaining agreement?
Well, they opted out of the collective bargaining agreement, basically saying that they don't want to continue with that. They want to renegotiate the split of revenue. The money. They want some benefits, better benefits. They want more marketing dollars to go towards, obviously marketing the game, things of that magnitude. Now they did sign a new broadcasting deal, which was it's $2.2 billion over 11 years, okay? Which is great because it's revenue to the game, and that's going to be split into the players' pockets. Problem I have is you have to generate more money. I think this year was a first step for them really to turn around and get more exposure. And I help that by using their platforms, by attending games. I think the players themselves in the WNBA did a great job, especially Caitlin Clark, companies endorsing players that brought more focus to the game. I don't think right now opting out is a great idea because a lot of investors currently are frustrated because there's no return on investment from their investments, which they have hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, this year, teams were guaranteed that they have private charters. They now expanded to another city for a new team. So they're making steps, and everything comes in steps. And, it's it's problematic when all of a sudden you just say, okay, I want more money. Well, unfortunately, if the money's not there, then you can't really ask for more money. Now, if it has to do with benefits, which if that's what they're claiming, which I haven't seen about the benefits, that's a different story. But a lot of the articles that I have seen so far, it's based about making more money. Now, WNBA players' average salary is $125,000 a year. They're definitely going to have
Pretty
more
good.
money
That's pretty good.
they're definitely going to have more money, I think, in the long term. But I think right now was really the first step that they're taking to be a profitable, league.
Right.
And I think like they're this year, if you haven't noticed, ESPN, the exposure, the endorsement deals, the players, even the controversy between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, it reminded me of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, the rivalry, which is great because that continues from college. And I think it was great. And the exposure's there. So I'm hoping that this doesn't delay any issues next year. I'm hoping that doesn't cause any problems. It was a little bit premature. And I think if you're going to request certain things, I think you need to have a firm and established boundary for it. And I don't know if they're looking for more money because the argument that they keep making is that they only get paid 9.9 revenue, and
So is the
I
revenue
don't
is the revenue split for the NBA players for the males? Is it different? Do they get more of a percentage of the revenue?
more they get more of a percentage. They get more of a
Uh,
percentage, and but NBA also makes so much more. And the also the other thing that people don't understand is the NBA's broadcasting contracts and broadcasting rights are so much more. It's so much more. So um, I don't know. I'm conflicted. I can understand you want more money. I can understand if you're looking for a better benefits. I can understand if you're looking for more revenue. I can understand if you're requesting, more marketing dollars. I get that. But at the end of the day, I think it was a little bit premature. But let it ride one more year, maybe 2 more years, see where you're at. Because this year was really a breakout year. I hate to put it. I paid attention. I'm a sports fan. In past years, they've tried to hype up certain players. You had Diana Taurasi. You had super players, Rebecca Lowe. We had other players, but they went on a global scale. And the WNBA is in a unique place right now where the WNBA's basketball play, especially, really
mhm.
took over. I hate to say this. A lot of people don't like this. Like Aja Wilson, I don't know her name, but Wilson, um, she's a great player and she's phenomenal. And but she doesn't get the exposure. Caitlin Clark came in the league with the exposure from college, and I hate people don't like to say this, but it helped their game a lot, and it
Oh yeah.
helped the exposure a lot. And
Mhm.
it reminded me a lot of that Jordan era where Jordan came into the league with this hype around him. And then after his year, he just really took the league to another level. Because
Yeah.
every sports league is looking for that next star to really get them next level. Patrick Mahomes in the NFL. You had Jordan, LeBron James. Now the issue with the NBA
Taylor
is
Swift in
who's
the
that next
NFL
star.
too.
Oh, don't ever bring that up again. I cannot stand the fact that in a football game they show her 87 times when
It's
nothing
good.
happens or Travis
It's
Kelsey
good
catches the ball.
press, man. It's good press.
It's very good press. But for the WNBA, I think Clark is phenomenal. I think the quality of the game is getting better. I think the press is getting better. I think the marketing is getting better, and endorsement deals are getting better. So I think you need to let it ride out a little bit, and so they can make more money and let your numbers show. Well, next year, I'm going to tell you right now, most likely next year they'll probably make more money because, as you can tell, they started moving games from local arenas to the NBA arenas because that's the fan base and people going to games now. So the revenue generation was higher, but your costs are still up there. Your expenses are still up there. So,
What,
and it's
what you,
it's evident by the owners being frustrated or the investors being frustrated by the return on investment.
so I think to make this clear, because I was going to devil advocate this a little bit, because percentage of revenue doesn't matter on quantity, right? Unless you haven't covered
Mhm.
your operating costs. And so I think maybe what you're trying to say is that the NBA has larger contracts that more than cover their operating costs so that they can offer their male players a higher percentage. And then
Percentage. Yep.
the WNBA are saying, "Hey, look, we want a higher percentage." And what the league is telling the players is, "Hey, we're not at that point yet where we can cover our costs and give a return, and then give you guys some money more of the revenue."
Yeah, I thought
Well,
I
yeah.
thought
So
the WNBA was subsidized by the NBA. That's
it's
where they get
subsidized by
that.
the NBA. Exactly. It's
Okay,
subsidized by the NBA.
I didn't know that.
So
Yeah, I didn't know that.
the WNBA is subsidized by the NBA. So the bigger issue is the revenue generation. Now, when you enter into a collective bargaining agreement, those bargaining agreements are typically 10 years, 7 years. It all depends on how they do it and the structure. You can opt out at a certain point. You can do certain things. You have a players union, players union representative, so they can do the negotiating and all that. Caitlin Clark and I don't want to diminish Angel Reese, but they're going to bring more money to the league. People tune in to watch the Sky game versus the Fevers game. They want to
Yeah,
see the good versus the bad, and it drives money the same way Jordan and Bird or Magic and Bird. It's the way it is. Let that play out. She's gonna get them. I'm gonna. This is God's honest truth. I really think she's gonna get a higher percentage, but what ends up happening at the end of the day is you need revenue. You do. You need revenue, and on a good path. They're on a good path. I can tell you the you know there's going to be games being played on both sides about who's they don't make as much money, and the other side says, well, you do, we want a bigger percentage, and then they're going to say, well, look at the numbers, this is our accounting. At the end of the day, I think, get as much money as you can, but let the game develop. Because if this turns into something next year where, they don't get to the percentage and the quality or the attendance goes down, it hurts the league. So I think it's going to continue to grow personally. I think the WNBA is going to continue to grow. I think, it's on a good path. Let it go. Let it continue growing. You're going to get a bigger percentage at the end of the day. And I think personally, um, it's gonna grow on its own to a point where they don't have to rely on the NBA at a certain point. Um, and it's going to be interesting to see how this renegotiation happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't negotiate from a place of weakness, right? If you're not even covering the basic costs that the WNBA creates every year, then I mean, how are you going to argue that you need to pay more money? No business outside of the WNBA is going to accept those kind of negotiations. But I feel like this is the same problem we had with women's soccer a few years ago when the CBAs were getting renewed. The men's CBA got renewed the year prior to the women's, and then there was this whole big thing about how they're getting paid more for food and all this other stuff. And I know that they hyped it up specifically so they could bargain higher with their when they went to negotiate. I mean, I get it; it was good PR, but like it they rode the wave differently. Women's soccer won the World Cup. They were making a bunch of money, and then they used that to
leverage.
negotiate better. The WNBA is not there
Well,
yet. Basically, what you're saying, they're not there yet. They're not in
yeah,
that position. They're making a bunch of money, and now they want a bigger piece of the pie. Right now, they're making a little bit more money than they did last year, but they're still not making a profit.
Yeah, big
yeah, I believe.
shout out to Fernando Trujillo in the chat. Fernando, he says Caitlin Clark gonna get them a bigger percentage for sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, 100%. She definitely is. My point is let them go. They're gonna make more money. And if you negotiate a CBA right now for a 10-year period and you can't opt out till 7 years after, and you put yourself at, let's say, okay, you're making right now 9.3% of the revenue. Let's say you get 11% of the revenue, okay, but your CBA doesn't end for another 3 years at the current level, and in 3 years you're making a significantly amount of money, you could negotiate that revenue percentage a lot higher. So we'll see what happens. It's interesting to see who's gonna be negotiating, what the renegotiated numbers is. But I think also one of the bigger components of it is the training facilities. I think it's the practice facilities, and that. In that case, I agree 100%. If that's the case, and you're neglecting those areas, 100% go
Yeah.
about it. But what the sticking point right now is more money being paid to you, but now the WNBA players have to do a better job then is arguing against the media by saying, hey, maybe it's not this. We need better training facilities, charters. We need better practice facilities. We need better marketing. If that's your argument, because that
Yeah.
will help you more and people will be more
Plus,
sympathetic and you can use that.
all of those things can also be achieved through strategic partnerships, right? So like if you want a better training facility, you can always partner with somebody who's building facilities or sells equipment, or a TV station or a marketing firm. But money is money. It's capital that's not being used, right? So if if you want more personal freedom over the use of capital, it doesn't necessarily help the league or the team. One of the things I wanted to bring up too is this, like, I had a trainer, and he was like a Division 1 basketball player, and then he went into a trainer for a while, and we used to talk about basketball. And I remember having to make a point with him, and it was something that kind of like blew him away. And so what I told him, I was like, all right, so you think you're a basketball player? And he said, I am. And I said, well, imagine this. Imagine if you went to play basketball in a stadium and nobody was watching. Would you still get paid? And he said no. And I go, because you're not getting paid to play basketball. You're getting paid to entertain people. Whether you want to like it, believe it or not, if no one watches, you don't get paid. If no one's in the forest, nobody hears the tree. Right. And so, and especially in this country with these really high grossing sort of entertainment values, it's like it is about viewership, unfortunately. And so getting more viewers is always possible. You can always change your stigma, you can always change your layout. But I think at the end of the day, we have to remember that these are functions of profitability, right? And without investors, the league wouldn't exist, right? And so and if there were no people watching, nobody would pay for anything. And so you'd be playing basketball, you'd be the best basketball player ever at a basketball court in your neighborhood. And so like the viewers are the ones that create the revenue.
Well, I mean, back to what you were saying about the partnerships, you can't get partnerships if you're not going to guarantee a return on your investment. They're not going to. Who wants to? And so far, the WNBA has not made any money. Like they have not made a profit yet.
Well, plenty of startups run in the red though, Chris, for a while.
Well, yeah, I know, but yeah.
So Ricardo, let me ask you a question.
How are you going to get more money? How are you going to get more money if you can't?
Ricardo, let me ask you a question.
No.
You said a startup. Do you know how long the WNBA has been around now?
How long?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
years.
I'm asking you.
12 years?
10 years? 12 years? Diana Taurasi's been in the league for 21 years. It's coming up on her 21st year. So it's technically not a startup anymore. So my whole thing is
Good point,
you have to start showing a profit. You have to start showing a profit. But in my experience from watching throughout all these years, this is the first year. Yeah, this is the first year. Yeah, this is the first year that they are really, really generating popularity and viewership. And it's because and people are not going to like it, but it's Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. More so Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese accepting the role. And it's going to continue to go and get better. With social media, with all these great things around, it's going to continue to grow. So you got to start turning a profit. You got to start, having a return on investment.
All right, guys. I want a good discussion, man. I think this was good. Definitely positive. I'd like to see what happens. Hopefully, these ladies grow their market share and get what they're asking for, and all a rising tide lifts all boats for sure. I wanted to segue. Yeah, I wanted to segue into another topic. Here, hold on a second. I'm just very bad at this, so give me 1 second. Come on, dog.
Being an MC, yeah, I know. We put up with it.
There we go. Streaming services. And so, Mike,
Mhm.
one of your other topics was streaming services. And the reason I wanted to bring this one up next is because I feel like when we had a discussion about streaming services back in the day, and we were talking about and analyzing Netflix, and you brought up a really good point where you, sorry guys, I'm sick, so I'm gonna be wheezing. And that point was that, and it was when Netflix was spending billions of dollars on content. Remember, Mike? And then you were like, "Hey, man,"
Yep.
and you called me one day, and you're like, "I just looked at their collateralized debt obligations." And I was like, holy crap. I was like, these guys are spending all the money because they haven't even started to make payments on the money they borrowed to start the company. And if they don't get to a critical mass, it doesn't matter who's fucking watching. And we watched the viewership go like the curve go like this, and then and so
Mhm.
I thought that was interesting. So do you think organizations like the WNBA are playing the same game, guys, that the streaming services are when it comes to gaining viewership?
Um, I can see them doing it to a certain perspective. I think, like the WNBA, excuse me, like the NBA, the WNBA is reliant on broadcasting rights. They did just sign a new contract for 2.2 billion over 11 years, which is a significant upgrade from their previous contracts. Um, Two different worlds, though. I want to say this is two different worlds. So streaming services like Netflix, we talked about this for how their content spending was out of control and how it was cheap debt at the time. So their
Unsustainable.
interest payments were, it was unsustainable. So Netflix took a complete 360 turn. What they said originally is it's cheap. You can watch the series right away. Um, and you can have as many people. They didn't say this, but it was kind of inferred. You can have many people on your account as you want.
Oh yeah,
You
share the
you know
account. Yeah.
people that had, yeah, share the account. And it was always about taking viewership away, cutting the cord. That was Netflix's model, and they were just trying to get as much content to compete against everybody else because they weren't a big studio. Netflix did a 360. They cut down on the password. They cracked down on the password sharing. They introduced ads. Now, if you saw Netflix's recent,
Wait. Netflix doesn't have ads. Amazon did ads.
no, Netflix has ads nowadays. They have a
Are you
cheap
fucking
tier where
kidding
it's
me?
$6.99.
Oh,
You can have
I didn't know that.
ads. Yeah. So now they
It's a
have ad
$5 hot
money
dog.
coming. Yeah, but now they have ad money coming in from all these companies. So Netflix was able to turn around, and the thing about Netflix also is their viewership. They knew what people liked, what their demographics were. They knew what they could, advertise towards. They knew that they had exposure where now, okay, the US is a certain market. I can now go into other markets and I realize we can have more subscribers sign up there and continue our subscriber growth. One thing Netflix did, which was very smart, was I believe it was India where they provided, they allowed you to have the Netflix app on your phone because they
Yeah.
realized most people in India watched shows and TV on their phone. So they were able to do that differently. My caveat, which is upsetting me, is the economies of scale. So a lot of people cut, cable because they were like, "Oh, this is getting out of control. This is too expensive." Look at the
I'm one of them for
costs
sure.
of these streaming services now. And what was originally promised to you, you can watch the whole season now. Okay, well, that has stopped. And you're gonna laugh at me when I say this because some people are gonna laugh like, "How did you watch that?" But Love is Blind. Okay, they
I,
have
I,
the first 6 episodes. The first five, I gotta wait 3 months to watch the next 5 episodes. You know how pissed off I am? I want to know who gets married. Okay, I want to know what happens.
oh man,
Okay, 2 months.
yeah, I feel you.
God,
Like F Boy Island. That was a good one with Nikki Glazer. That was a good one. I
yeah,
don't know if you
yeah,
saw
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And
So
I
the
mean,
so
the,
so
the idea,
So you
yeah.
think
So
what
the idea
your gripe is that streaming services are getting out of hand, and that basically
too
what it
expensive.
looks like to me is that they've dragged everyone in with a carrot of cutting the cord, and now basically we have, instead of one bill that was $200, I have $20 or 10 20 19.99 bills, and I'm paying the same thing, but I have to go back and forth and search for the content when it was all pretty much in one place. And so like who's are the consumers of the content really winning?
Well, yeah. So about it is though is I think a lot of these streaming services they threw them out there and they're noticing that hey, these are the most popular ones. We're not generating the subscriber growth that we wanted. So how can we make this a better proposition? What's starting to occur and what you're starting to find out is now there's conversations about streaming services bundling together.
I
And
was
they're
just
talking
gonna
about
say
like I believe it was they're bundling together for a certain
it's
price.
like with
Now,
regional banks, like when banks they expand, there's a bunch of them, and then all of a sudden there's a crunch on money, and then all the banks come up and eat up all the regional banks.
mhm. And you look at certain companies like Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. It's all the same company, Disney. So you have three streaming services for three different. Also was owned, I believe, had an ownership by
Fox.
Comcast. Was it Fox or Comcast?
Fox, yeah. And then when
Uh,
Disney bought Fox Studios, they got Hulu.
Yep. So that was exactly what it is. So I noticed that now Disney Plus is mixing Hulu into its packages, and there's content that's available on both streaming services, which makes no sense. But the one thing about Hulu, which is an issue, is they have those agreements with certain media companies and certain, like I think it's like Fox and certain it's like they have the exclusive right to stream certain shows the
Right,
day after it happens
right,
onto its service. So I think
right.
eventually what you're going to see is Hulu probably will be out the door and it will all be exclusively over to Disney, Disney Plus. So I think
Well,
but it's like going,
but
or do you think
my
it's vice versa?
the thing with the Disney brand is it's so uh oriented towards young people, and it's got this sort of like Walt Disney like fan. It's so like, and Hulu's great, but there's some shit they say fuck, and they do drugs on Hulu, and like, is that something
Mhm.
that Disney wants to include in its umbrella of marketing? I don't
Well,
know.
I'll give you a perfect example why they do. Deadpool. Deadpool is
No,
on Disney Plus. Okay, and
oh,
they're starting to incorporate, yeah, they're starting to incorporate other content onto Disney Plus. Now, I think maybe if they incorporate the entire Hulu under Disney Plus, yeah, within the app itself, or the streaming service, I should say, I think there's going to be kind of it's going to be having the children adult settings, so children can't see certain readings and adults only
oh
can
yeah.
see that. So it's the parental settings and the parental controls. I think that will end up happening. But overall, my point though, just in general, the streamers is they're getting everything that was promised to you is now vanquishing overnight. It's vanishing, and I
Well,
am beyond frustrated in certain areas.
Chris, I
it's
think has a different opinion. Go ahead.
no. I was gonna say it's. I mean, it's obvious why. We're looking at it from you gotta look at it from the macro level. It's market share. Like when Netflix started, they were only show in town, and then Hulu, was like getting there, but it was difficult to stream. And then now you got Max, HBO, Hulu, NBC, ABC, Fubu or Fubo. I mean, there's so many different services now, all having basically the same content, with exceptions. And the market share is so muddled now that everybody's doing the boomer thing. How can I increase revenue every year for the foreseeable future? And so they're playing the games. So now it's like, okay, well, let's cut back on the number of people that have accounts, and let's raise our subscription prices, or let's include other things like Hulu and Disney, and and all they're trying to do is just increase their revenue every year, and they're just playing a game. It's just a game that they're playing, and
And
we're suffering. We're always going to suffer.
And it's greedy
Mhm.
because the best way to increase your revenue is to let the new creative people do their job and to hand down the wealth to the next generation. But no, they're holding on to the wealth, and I think that's one of the causes of a lot of discrepancies that we're seeing in markets and industries is that you have a group of people that are living 17, 20 years longer, and they're not passing down the wealth to the creators. And there's a whole bunch of raw talent out there that just really needs some support
Well,
financially to get
they
their
don't
ideas.
trust the content by itself will increase the revenue.
They don't trust
They
anybody.
Well,
they think that they
well,
have to
to
manipulate it to make more money when they could just let their content speak for itself, put out things that people want to see, and they will make money as a byproduct of that, as opposed to making money by manipulating the system so that their consumers pay more money.
Absolutely. So one thing I want to say is FUBU, for us, by us, um, is what you said,
Fubo. I
which
know it's Fubo. Fubo.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
old. We're
Did you
old,
say
man.
David
Fupa?
John,
Fubu. It's
I
Did
love
you
I
say
love I love
Fupa?
him on Shark Tank. I
I
love
hope you
him.
didn't
I
say
love him
Fupa.
on Shark Tank. But no, I agree
Well,
with you. I agree 100%. I agree 100% with you.
Joey.
The bag is thrown on us. The increased cost of the streaming services. And by the way, I will say this 100 times. I think content, the quality of content, has gone down tremendously. I think the amount of content coming down has gone down dramatically. I don't think the same amount of content's being out there. I think because they're spending so much money in other territories, in other continents, because they're trying to attract more people there. So you're not getting as much content. And I also think some of the biggest problems with Netflix and some of the other studios or some of the other streaming services is that they don't have the studios. So one of the biggest things with Netflix is they're renting the studio space, where you have Amazon, who just bought MGM Studios. You have Fox, who has their own studios. You have HBO, which is Warner, who has their own studios. And so it's a combination of things. Actually, I think didn't HBO Max just get bought by somebody? They sold off Warner, if I remember correctly.
I think they did.
Um,
I also know that some of these
yeah,
guys are building new studios in Austin and in Texas. I saw there was
yep. hmm
some construction,
Well, there's a
some new
massive
construction.
there's a massive
Texas.
project in New York. Yeah, in one of the opportunity zones where I think it was MGM. I can't remember what studio, which bought a ton of land to create studios in Yonkers, New York,
Oh,
which was
that's
insane. Yeah, so yeah, so
that's
you have increased costs,
dangerously
and then
close to Wall Street for me. That's dangerously close to Wall Street for me.
okay, there's nowhere close to Wall Street.
I mean, it's closer than Los Angeles, motherfucker.
Oh, good point. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's it's not conducive to high quality content, because now you're still just chasing profit. I mean, I think that's why some of these streaming services we're doing better. To your point, we're making better quality material because they were letting the creative people come up with ideas, because they didn't have anything. There was just like they were just trying to saturate the market with ideas, and so they were just willing
mhm.
to like just let it play out. And now we're kind of getting the same thing that Hollywood is, where producers are only funding things that they think will make them money, and so nobody is letting
Remakes.
anything hit the market that has potential to fail
Yeah,
in their eyes. It's somebody's idea, right? Even though
right.
we know the remakes are kind of ridiculous at this point.
That's how you can
That's just
tell when the suits have taken over. When there's remake central,
yeah, it's the same thing.
yeah. One of
So
two. One
more of
of
the
two.
story is So
One
more of
of
the
two
story,
signs
if
right now.
anybody here, shut up, Carter, I gotta say this. So more of the story, if anybody that watches this podcast, okay, tell Netflix to release Love is Blind all at once.
Okay, so before we move on to the next topic, I want to ask you guys. And so, like, these are great points, but like, so what's a consumer to do? Like, what am I to do? What do we do? Are we waiting to see the bundling? Should we cancel some of the services? Should we go back to cable? What's the play here, guys?
Well, I mean, just keep looking at just keep looking at the market. So, I mean, if there's quality content that's not being put out, it's going to be coming from the startups. So go to the smaller companies, the people that are trying to like get into the game. So like your Fubo, like if you see a new streaming service come out, that's probably going to be where their best quality content is going to come out, because they're trying to chase the big corporations to get on the scene. Those are going to be the ones you're going to look at. And unfortunately, they're going to be like everything else. So, they're going to be flash in the pan. You might get some cool stuff for a little while, like Costco. They have something cool for like a week, and then you go back the next time and it's gone. That's it. But it's cheaper than Netflix and Disney.
Bastards. It is cheaper than Netflix. That's a
well,
that's a
you're
really
starting to
good
see it.
advice, Chris.
So you're starting to see it. So one of the big things is it's being selective what streaming services you actually pay for. So that's already happening. So because of the costs are going through the roof with the tier systems and whatnot, you're going to see people cutting back on having all 8 or 9 streaming services. You're going to see people have maybe 3, 4 max. So I can tell you right now, I only purchase it during certain seasons because I'm a big sports fan. I won't watch it during baseball season because I have HBO Max. So what I do is ESPN Plus. I watch football and college basketball, but those are only certain months. So it's also with the other streaming services. I think because of the cost going up, I think you're going to start seeing people cut back more and more on certain services because you used to say, okay, I have them. Now it's like, okay, I don't really care about having them. It's making a dent in my wallet.
So it's almost like a seasonal pay-per-view where you're like, hey, look, like I want to pay, for these 3 months during basketball season, it's going to cost me $75 and then I'm going to cancel it. So it's like a seasonal pay-per-view almost.
Yeah.
Well, not to segue in the next topic, another topic too much, but one of the FTC rulings.
Let's go ahead and go there right now, Chris.
Yeah, one of the federal trade rulings was about that. I mean, it's not the review bombing one. I wasn't going to talk about that one because it wasn't as entertaining, but it segues. One of the FTC, and this is the Federal Trade Commission, just so everybody knows what FTC is. One of the rulings that they came out with is making easier to cancel subscriptions. So that's one of the things that they're doing is now you have to have I have to read it again and make sure I know the details, but it was essentially saying that it has to be easier to cancel your online subscriptions. And that's one of the things that they just ruled this week. And that's not the same one, but that will help.
Is this mail subscriptions, mailers, or is this
FTC for all
what type of subscription?
Like
I'm pretty sure they're talking about online stuff. Like I said, I didn't really read the whole thing because it wasn't what I was going to talk about.
People are getting billed for things they're not using and they're not aware they're paying for them.
Right. Yeah. So Apple makes it easy. If you have a subscription through Apple, you just go to your subscriptions and you can turn it on and off with a button. Yeah. But like not every like Hulu, it's impossible to cancel your Hulu. I was in Saudi, I couldn't cancel my Hulu subscription, or they wouldn't let me. Like
because you weren't.
They make it extremely hard.
Yeah, they make it hard, and I couldn't call them because I wasn't in Saudi. So like I just had to pay for my Hulu until I came back to California and cancel it.
I like to treat the IRS like that, make it extremely hard for them to get to cancel their subscription.
It's one of those manipulations we just talked about. The boomers, man, they're just trying to make more money. It's ridiculous.
So what's this review bombing thing that you're talking about? Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's like a few filings that came out, and they're trying to ban review bombing, basically.
What's that? What's review bombing for the viewers?
Well, the big one, the most recent one was the Disney Acolyte series. Basically, they
not a good one.
It got review bombed. A bunch of people came out and said it was horrible. You shouldn't watch it, and their ratings were terrible. And they decided to blame the reviewers why they didn't get people watching, not the quality of their content, like we just talked about. And so the FTC is trying to essentially, probably because somebody is on the Disney board, trying to ban review bombing. So like you can't. Well, one of the big ones is bots. You can't use bots to review things anymore. You can't troll yourself. You can't review your own content. So like that's another mechanism that people were using. Ricardo and I have talked about this a little bit. And for those of you out there, if you weren't aware, so like what they'll do is you have a product, right? And then you go on your own products, marketing, like Instagram or whatever it is, and you'll purposefully review or comment on it with something that's like bombastic, like intentionally emotionally responsive. And then that starts up a conversation about your review that really isn't related to the product at all. And that triggers the algorithms to get people to pay for advertising and like to like spam your post on Instagram. Because
are you serious?
Seriously, yeah. So you troll yourself, you troll your own product, and it increases the algorithms in Facebook and Instagram to get your stuff to go viral. Yeah,
I think it's things like that make me not want to call myself a marketer. This is why
that's insane, right? Yeah, it's crazy. So that's one of the
So
rulings that they're trying to prevent this kind of thing from happening. So you can't review your own content, and you can't use AIs to do it. So
No bots.
yeah, no bots.
so review bombing definitely is out there. You see it more and more nowadays. I think I saw recently that certain websites are forcing you to have an account. So you have to log in, you have
Right.
to create an account, and if they start noticing that you're only reviewing one thing, they realize that it could potentially be a bot. So they will remove it. Review bombing has been going on for a while. Going back to that lovely series on Disney Plus, um, there was outside of just the review bombing, critics did not think it was a great series. But if you went to a lot of people were very critical of the series just in general. So, uh, you know, it's a combination thing. I think review bombing by bot systems is it needs to be stopped just in general. I don't think it helps anybody. So, but is it really something that the FTC needs to get involved in? We already have tons of issues going on, so they need to spend resources to all these lovely websites like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb or any of the other rating sites and spend time doing that.
I'm
Maybe
from the
potentially,
government. I'm here to help.
It
yeah.
sounds more like they're trying to protect the people that are making the money and not the people that are consuming. But
Yes.
Okay, you protect the people. Protect the people. I gotcha. Okay.
protect the people making money, like the businesses, right? Not the
Yeah.
yeah, trying to
Yeah.
say, hey,
Not the
look,
consumer. Yeah, not the
yeah.
consumer.
So like what they're saying is like,
Mhm.
look, because let me tell you, the Acolyte to me was really boring. I tried to watch it, I just couldn't get into it, and it doesn't mean that other people wouldn't find it entertaining. Um, but let's just say, what if everyone was forced to leave a review? What if AI watched your face while you watched everything and based on a standard knew whether you liked it or not, and that was calculated, sort of like an AI Nielsen, right? And then like and when you put the Acolyte out there, and it's 85% that people didn't like it, and like and the reviews and the review bombing reflect that. So we really need, I think what we need to do is understand is whether the review bombing is really causing a dissonance between the product and the consumer, because I don't want to watch that show. I thought it was awful and I was disappointed. And if I had read a review that said whatever it said, I would have been a much saved, 2 days of my life watching this thing. And I would have just never watched it. And so, I see Mike's point. Mike's point is like, hey, doesn't the FCC have something better to do than to protect bad content that's made for profit? Right? Because I mean, like, who cares? How many great series did Disney put out there and they had one that bombed? Okay, man, take the fucking hit and make a better series. Don't put Accolade out again. That's the message that
Well,
I'm getting. But like if you're saying, oh my God, my $100 million project didn't work out. Well, that's what art is, man. Like, and being an artist, like I wish everything that I created or said was wonderful and it received by everyone. But the whole point of beauty is that there's no beauty unless there's ugly. You can't, otherwise everything is just everything. And so there's going to be bad shows, man. And you should cut your losses and learn from that, and don't duplicate algorithms that don't produce profitability and enjoyment. Just simple feedback. I would be more grateful from Disney's standpoint that you are able to get feedback from the consumers directly, instead of having to pay Nielsen, to get like 14 people, who knows where the fuck those Nielsen people are, to tell you whether or not your show's being watched.
yeah, I think one of the unique things in one of the companies that has done a good job at kind of um, limiting the review bombing was Amazon. Years ago with products, Amazon had issues with this. And what ended up happening is shows, products, there was bots that were involved. But Amazon's analytics and ability to, detect things is a lot better than certain other providers or websites, because they're a software company, tech company. Rotten Tomatoes, some of the other companies, I don't think they have the infrastructure to reduce techniques and things of that nature. It's going to happen no matter what. You're going to have people, like Ricardo said, that's not going to agree with shows, that are not going to like things. It's art, it's creative nature. The next thing they're going to say is, well, this show did bad, all not real people, when in fact they could be real people. They just didn't like the show. So they'll blame everybody else for the fact that they failed. And it's not them, because that's a world nowadays where everybody blames everybody else and they can't take accountability in a lot of areas. So I get to play here. Yeah, I just personally think the FTC has a lot more to deal with. They have bigger issues. I don't think review bombing is on the top of, their list. If they have resources that they can throw towards it, okay, that's one thing. But I do not think we should be wasting taxpayer dollars on something like this. I think there's just too many other things that are at play.
Absolutely. Well, good topic, guys. Let's do another one from Chris here. So, Chris, I want to talk about polls, and I don't mean the kind that girls dance on, and that just got me in trouble.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so this is something that Ricardo and I've spent a lot of time talking about, but essentially I looked at the poll. So 580, whatever it is, 580 something. They put out their polling data for the recent for the election. What is it? I gotta pull it up now.
538.
538. Apologize. 538.
Come on, get ready.
And so they listed all the polls that they were collecting data from to create their poll data.
And you don't mean Polish people, right?
Correct. And so something that's always bothered me, if you look at all the polls that they're utilizing, they're all around 1,000 people. There's one that's like 8,000 people. There's some that are fewer than 1,000. And so like it might, I'm looking at it, it might be 35,000 people if I'm guessing 35,000 people. And that's essentially the public view of what the polls are stating. I'm not even going to tell you who's on top. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is essentially around 35,000 people in a country that's got 330 million is determining
0.01%.
Yeah, is determining what they're saying, who's leading in the polls, right? Who's like on top. Like, and like I said, I don't really care either way. What's frustrating is the way they do it. If you click on each one, it'll tell you exactly how they got these people on, and they all say essentially they call them, like they basically call these people, right? Have any of you guys ever gotten a call to answer a poll? I've never gotten a call.
I've gotten call. I haven't answered a phone call, I think, in probably like a good 28 months, man. I mean,
well, so my point being that, and this
we talked last week.
Frustrating. Yeah. Well, Mike called me earlier because he, was trying to figure out how to talk. But so
now we talk here. So,
what's frustrating is like, if you're like, let's say I'm some journalist at some newspaper, and they're like, and my editor's like, hey man, I need you to come up with a poll for the elections. We got 14 days or whatever, and he's like, oh crap, yeah. And so is he gonna cold call 10,000 people and hope he gets a big enough number to like collect poll results, or is he going to call 1,000 people he knows going to pick up the phone and give him an answer?
That's a good point,
right? And so these people, they have a phone call list, they have a mailing list of people that they weeded down at some point. I don't know when, and maybe I would like to think that they recirculate this every few years, but I doubt it. I would like to think that every few years they spam like 100,000 people. They find out whatever sticks to the fridge, and then they collect all that data. And now they have a list of like 1,200, 1,400 people that will answer the phone when they call them.
Yeah.
And so they call those 1,400 people every time they poll, right? And I would like to think that every few years they spam 500,000 people and they collect the data, and that's the new set of. I don't think they do that. I think it's the same 1,400 people that they know will answer the phone. And so that's what your polls are based off of. Your polls are based off of the journalist who has 1,400 people who he knows will answer the phone when he calls and asks for poll information. And that's what and it's ridiculous. And this is why you couldn't, I wish you could go back to COVID when we're all sitting in our houses and I could like hit a button that says, are you happy that you're sitting at your home not doing anything about because of this thing that's and we all know it was bad and not bad and whatever. I would have liked to heard that half the country was like, "This is stupid. Why are we doing this?" Right? Or maybe it was, "Oh my God, I can't. We can't go outside." Whatever it was, right? But we can't. We don't have that ability. We have to rely on people to call 1,000 people that will answer the phone. We can't access that information. The data doesn't exist. I cannot ask a question to the public, to the general public, at least a legitimately significant portion of it, to find out their opinion. I want to know: do 100 million people in this country believe in
XYZ.
X,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and then get a reasonable return and find out, oh, hey, guys, I think we're wrong.
Yeah, like
You
when
know what
Chris
I mean? Like,
when Chris and I were talking about this, I think Chris's first question, he's like, I would really love to know how many people believe in Santa Claus still. Right? Like that's a great poll because it's a simple poll, but it's one where it's like, you know what I mean? Like you need everybody. I'd love to see out of the 350 million
He's real.
people, yeah, like whether he exists or not. I think we would be shocked at the
I
results.
asked some people. this question. I got one that do you pee in the shower? I thought that was a good one. Right?
It's a great question.
I don't know. Do you? Maybe. I'm
Absolutely.
curious.
Anytime there's
Hey,
running water. I mean, I gotta
Hey,
I gotta
Chris,
stop
you pee in the
myself from
shower?
taking a piss when I go to Taco Bell, man. If there's somebody's pouring a Coke, like I gotta go, man. If there's running water, I'm gonna go.
Yeah. So, Chris, so is that a yes or no?
I do.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. I'll pee in, Mike. I've peed in your shower even when I wasn't taking a shower.
That is rude. That's so messed up.
Do you?
All
do you
right,
at
I
least
remember
rinse?
that.
Do you
I
rinse
remember that.
afterwards? I mean,
Yeah, you rinse, turn the shower on. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're never allowed in my place ever again.
I mean, I can't really speak.
Yeah, I
I've
think,
been in the Marines for 20 years, so like, yeah, I peed all over.
yeah,
the place.
that's a different story.
I bet,
That's a different story.
especially on the
I
Pella
think
lid.
I think the whole thing about polling, I agree with you. It's kind of a predetermined list of people that they know are either going to answer or they're in a demographical area where they know what the response is going to be or something of that magnitude. Um, there's so many polls out there. Like, you have 538, you have Real Clear Politics, you have Nate Silver, you have so many polling companies, Quinnipiac, CNN, Wall Street Journal. Um, are they polling the same people? Is it the same list of people?
Financially
Are they sharing?
motivated.
Yeah,
It
but so
sounds
my,
like
my whole thing is I understand, like, in theory what they're trying to do. They're trying to get a grasp of people. Um,
sample. A
is it
sample.
Yeah, so there's so many questions around polling that you can't answer, you don't, and all of these services or all these polling companies are, they're not as transparent as you wish. And in the way that everything happens, it's extremely hard to find out. Now, I do like some polling services a little bit better because they explain their methodology on how they combine the polls, and they come up with basically their results. But it's a hard thing to poll people without appearance of bias, and I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I don't think having an app on your phone because, or them sending you text messages, because I'll tell you why. First, most people will just be like, I don't know this number, delete. And then the
Yeah.
second thing is also people are going to be like, why am I on this list? That's another problem.
Oh, hey, so let me ask you guys this. If there was like a platform like Twitter, right? Or X or whatever they call it these days. And it was only polls. So it was like a stream of different questions. And in order for you, like Twitter, to see the answer, you had to participate in that specific question. Is that something that you guys would use as a resource where it was just ongoing? Like there wasn't like a
They're
period of
doing
time.
that.
Who's doing that?
So X has that now. several websites, like when you get articles and stuff like that, they'll ask you questions at the bottom of it. Like, for example, they'll say, do you think this article is not biased? Swipe right or swipe left? Or they'll do things of the magnitude like X was, I think it was, there was, oh God, it was a huge poll though. They had somebody on, but it was like, do you think this was beneficial? Or did you find this informative? Or it was like a presidential poll as well. They were like, who do you think is going to win? And you had people that were members log in and vote. You're starting to see that more and more on several websites. Like, I think it's Yahoo that has something very similar as well, where it's like something along the lines, if you were going to buy something, which one of these would you buy, or something of that magnitude. Now, it's starting to happen that way. I think political polls a little bit different in nature. I don't think they're going to release those data points. I think new ever changing environment of how those are going to be conducted. Like, think about it. They're still using phone calls. That's the old ways. That's a method that's old.
Yeah.
With all the technology we have at our disposal now, why does it seem so difficult that we can't just, like, I don't know, use Face ID to, prevent bots from answering questions? You know what I mean? And it's ridiculous.
It's statistic. I mean, like, so one of the things we learned about, and shout out to University of Arizona Behavioral Sciences Department in college, was how to write questions so that we wouldn't skew the answers of polls or surveys, we used to call them. And we studied a whole bunch of stuff. And, being evil as I was back then, what I realized was that the positive of that was that I could formulate within a series of between 7 and 21 questions. It all depends on what I'm trying to do. A series of questions worded in a way that no matter which way they answered them, I would still get the survey in my favor.
Right.
And so what they were teaching us was the ethical way to create surveys. And, obviously you think about the contrapositive. And what shocked me was, once I got into the real world, is that none of these moral or ethical standards were enforced by any guidelines. They were individually based. And so if I decided I wanted to create a survey that favored somebody or somebody else, and now that I'm not in academia and I need money to survive, obviously I'm going to make my boss happy, like Chris was saying, and create a survey or create a list of samples in which I'm going to get somewhere close to a predictable answer. And I think that might be the insidious thing that's wrong with polls right now.
Well, it's all financially motivated. All the data is all financially motivated. Nobody's polling anybody for just shits and giggles.
Yeah,
at least not to any volume, right? At least not that we see.
It's a great
maybe.
Look, I'm just going to put it very simply. I'm going to put it very simply. I want to be part of the poll. Ask me the questions. Yeah. Okay, I'll answer.
If you're watching and you're a pollster or you're Polish or whatever, we want to be part of the poll. Come on, I love the brats and the sausage.
Do you pick your nose, Mike? Do you pick your nose?
I do.
Do I pick my nose? Is this a yes, no, or is this
multiple choice?
Is this a yes, no, or
yes, no, or I mean, or not the whole.
Right. And so, like, let me tell you. And so, like, what I would do to get the answer that I wanted is I would create a scale for that question. And I would say, how often do you pick your nose? Never, somewhat, frequently, and blah, blah, blah. And then everyone that answered along the scale that wasn't never would be a yes. And I don't care how often. And now I have an overwhelming amount of yeses because there's one no and 7 other questions, and so that one sticks out. And so that's one way to skew the results of a survey or whatever you want to say.
Or you have 4 positives, only 3 negative.
You got answers. There's all that too. And it's emotionally charged too. And one of the things we used to do would be like, you had to balance positive and negative questions so that at the end of the survey the user was emotionally neutral, right? But I can create a survey, right, that is not a survey. Right? I can create a survey that is unbalanced in a negative way, and I don't care about the answers, but everyone that participates is now leaving the survey negative.
Isn't that propaganda?
Propaganda is positive. It's only recently that propaganda has become negative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
try to see if I can
that's a
find
good
some of
one,
these.
guys. So I think the consensus here between the three of us is like, take a look at the poll data with a grain of salt, guys. And if you really want to take a survey, ask people that you know and trust. Don't be afraid to ask your neighbors and members of your community. Anything that we can do to encourage discussion, and especially about our feelings about these certain things like nose picking. I think it's a very important topic, maybe for the FTC to look at next after review bombing.
Yep.
And so
100%.
yeah, I mean, definitely get out there and have conversations with your fellow Americans and everyone else in your environment. Chris, tell me a little bit about this other one you got going out here. This one looks like a HOA rule.
HR, yeah, HR 91.
All right, let's talk about this, guys. What is this, buddy?
So HR 91 is been sitting at the Judiciary Committee at the House since 2022.
What is
January. It's called the One Rule or One Subject Transparency Rule, and essentially it is a bill that prevents additional subject matter to being added to a bill that goes.
What do they call
House,
it?
right?
Like, it's not pork bellying, is it? What's it called when they do that? No, it's got a name.
Slam hogging. That's what it's
No,
called.
that's your second favorite porn topic, Chris.
Oh man, yeah. Wood chucking, log rolling are the kind of the slang terms.
Don't forget about the muted bimbos.
Yeah, I know. So essentially, what you'll see happen is like somebody will have an education bill, right? And maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. That's not the point. But somebody at the 11th hour will add an addendum or an appendix or something that will add funding to like an abortion clinic and whatever, right? Something like that. And it doesn't matter if the educational bill is wrong or right. What happens is that nobody will vote yes or no for it because there's an abortion addendum, right? And
not abortion specifically, but just something that's not in the
Something
spirit of
Another
the
topic
original
that's
bill.
unrelated.
something that's completely unrelated to education.
Moonfoot of
And so then what you'll hear in the media and the public is you'll hear that, one side or the other, didn't vote for this education bill because they don't care about education in whatever state. But what they don't tell you is that some a-hole threw in some sort of addendum at the last minute that made people not want to vote for the bill.
Poison
right?
pill the bill. Poison pill the bill.
Poison pill the bill. It's called log rolling or wood chucking or something along those lines. So HR 91 was introduced by Arizona representative. I have it written down somewhere. A couple years ago, and it's been stuck in the Judiciary Committee this whole time. It hasn't left committee. So the House has never seen it. It's never been voted on the floor, right? And it would essentially prevent you from adding any other subject to a bill. And it has to be clearly stated in the subject line what the bill is about. And then it prevents anybody from adding any crap to it. And so obviously the idea is to help, get some of this stuff across, because we have these omni bills now that are just so packed full of crap that like nobody even knows what they're voting for anymore, because it's a 500-page bill that has addendums for every state and every federal rule you could possibly think of, and then everybody's like, well, I mean, do I really want to vote yes for this, even though there's that one little blurb that makes pot free, which actually happened for a day one time, legalized marijuana, because somebody added it at the last second and nobody read it. Yeah, that really happened. And this is kind of stuff that's preventing that from happening. It will disallow you from adding anything that isn't part of the one subject. But like I said, it's been stuck in committee for 2 years. It hasn't made any progress.
Well, that's obvious. Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
You don't want to know my thoughts.
I could tell by your face.
I think. Okay,
on,
so first off, I think the bill is great because I think the bill is great because I think it's kind of ridiculous when you read some of these bills how long they are and how much pork goes into these bills. A lot of these bills are ridiculously packed with things that are not basically essentially intended to be part of the original purpose. I think if you have a bill about education, I don't understand why you should be giving $5 million to a port in Newark, New Jersey, or $10 million for funding for a prison in Michigan, or That's basically a legalized version of bribery to get a vote. You want that person to vote for this bill, so you throw in financing for them to agree to it, and that individual will hold hostage that bill, because then they'll turn around and they'll be like, "Well, I'm not going to vote for it unless you help my consensus here." I think this bill is great, but just like every other bill that's out there, it's going to take years, time, and maybe it never will. Maybe it will be introduced. Maybe they don't take it up. Maybe they don't have committees, or they talk about it. So I think the bill is great itself, but it fundamentally addresses a bigger problem. Now, the problem with the bill itself is, because I've gone onto the website to try to read about it, is it's typically boilerplate the first 3 pages. It doesn't actually give you the text of the bill. It just tells you a summary of the bill, which is the problem. So you can't really read the clear definition of what they are proposing.
Is that
In theory, it
legal?
sounds great.
Is that legal for
Yeah,
them
you
to do
can't.
that?
I don't think it's public until it's actually
Yeah,
voted on.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah, because think about it just in general, though. If they have bills on finance, have bills on certain other things, and the particularities or those bills are out there, there's a lot of people that might short stocks, buy stocks. There might be people that move around their business, holdings. There might be things that happen beforehand that will impact kind of just the economy, or in general the everyday consumer or individual. Going back to this bill itself, I think it's good in theory. Let's see if it ever comes to fruition. I will love to see that day, but we're still waiting on a bill where Congress members aren't allowed to trade stock, and that hasn't come through just yet. That's been stalled for years, and they argue on a daily basis. So we'll see what happens. I think in theory it's great, but I'm not holding my breath on this.
I think I feel the same way as Chris and Mike do on this. I do believe that there's a lot of like positive incentives, to get rid of some of this stuff, and they've been talking about it for forever. But I think what the good news is that since it's in HR, it's still in the House, which means that everybody watching this can still contact their local representative and let them know how they feel about this bill, and let them know, hey, man, this is sitting still for vote, and in this committee, we would really like this to go through. So that's the beauty of the HR bills, is that you can contact your local representative and bitch at that motherfucker or that woman all day long, and let them know how you feel about the things that they're supposed to be representing for you. So that's something proactive, I think, that everybody watching can do if they're sick of this kind of stuff. And if you don't know how to get in touch with your local congressman, then message the show and we will tell you how to get in touch with your local congressman.
So originally,
This
when
is
I put
also
topics together, I actually had the judiciary committees, all the people on the judiciary committee, all their names and
That's
their
not important.
states. Well, just who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to contact?
Right, but let's let the public do their own research a little bit here, right? Because I don't want to seem like we're presenting names as culprits, but there's a committee. You can Google it right now.
Judiciary committee.
Look it up, and you can find who's on it. And
so like I said before, this is politics, and just remember this also. It could be a bargaining tool for votes when they come up. Hey, I tried to get this passed, this bill. It never got out of the House. It never got out of this. It's a game. Politics is a game. So as much as this in theory sounds great, sometimes bills are presented which have there's no way that they would ever pass, but there's no chance. But they use it as a way of saying, I tried it. I tried it. See, I was fighting for you guys. And our girls or constituents.
It gives me hope.
But yeah.
It gives me hope that at least somebody, regardless of their motivations, it gives me hope that at least somebody like put it put a bill together. I mean,
yes, it gives me hope that's going to sit there.
Like you said, though, it could be motivated by who knows what, but at the same time, I was thinking like, man, why all these bills suck? And then I look up, and sure enough, somebody's already presented it. It just whether or not it's the right person with the right motivations is a whole nother ball of wax, unfortunately.
Yeah, good one, man.
Look, it's a good idea. It's a good idea in theory. I'm hoping that it's taken up because this is a significant issue. And I'll keep my fingers.
Excellent. Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about privacy in electronics? What do you got going on over there, buddy?
Well, this is one of the topics. This is a topic that you, both of you, have experience in that I wanted to bring at the forefront. I don't think a lot of people pay attention. I don't think a lot of people pay attention to actually their privacy. I think a lot of people are not pushing back on things. I think we're in a constant state of surveillance that people don't even realize. And it's kind of concerning in a lot of areas that people were just so oblivious to it, and they don't care. So, a couple of points. So, I was reading an article not too long ago about Roomba, which is the robot that cleans your floors.
I got some great stories along these lines.
Kills cats.
Yeah. Yeah, so Roomba got in trouble because,
So
and I never
pattern
knew
over
this.
there. The pattern over there in the Midwest, getting rid of those pets, eh?
Yeah, we like that stuff.
Roomba got in trouble because I never knew this, but they actually have cameras in the room in the Roomba. So a lovely camera was in a bathroom and it recorded a woman while she was on the toilet, and it made its way to Twitter. And it was all over the internet of the woman being in the bathroom. Now, first, I never knew that Roomba had a camera on it. They sold
I thought you were
itself.
going to say that you didn't know that women use the bathroom, but we all do.
No, not that, we all do. But the whole thing
Never
was
go number two.
yeah. So the whole thing was how many people actually knew there was a camera there that actually was facing into your, that was monitoring in essence. Now, I haven't read into the policy or why the camera's there, but clearly it was recording. So, that's a problem. Did you read the agreements when you first bought it? Did you consent to them being able to record your place? And where is that information going? So that's the first thing. One of the bigger things is your cell phone. Your cell phone. One of the apps that you use, the information that you're giving to these companies through your phone. You're not realizing what is actually happening, how they're tracking you, the data that you're providing, the data that you're basically and essentially just turning over for free because of the access you're using on the phone. And that's concerning. One of the things for me that's very concerning is, and everybody has these smart TVs, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is so great! This is phenomenal." In the last 15 years, every TV comes with a camera that's forward-facing. How many people actually use that camera? How many people are actually video recording or doing zooms on it? Now, don't get me wrong. There are people that use it. But I've had smart TVs, I'm probably going to say for 12 years, 13 years now. The latest models just keep on improving in quality. Not once in that time frame have I ever used that camera. And the problem becomes there is do we know who's accessing that camera? Do we know if we've given consent to companies to monitor or actually use it in case of emergencies? And so we're in a constant state of surveillance, and our privacy is our privacy, and it's turning out to come to light that we really have no privacy anymore. One of the things that is concerning is people just allowing our privacy to just be to be infringed upon. And it's like, but the same model, the same mind frame or mindset, I should say, comes in. Well, they're going to get the information one way or another. Really? So a lot of people have taken that approach. Is that the right approach? They're going to get the information. Why don't you, the problem is, why don't people start protecting themselves more from the intrusion by a lot of these companies that you're giving away? Why do I need a Roomba on the floor with a camera in it cleaning up my place? Is it that hard to clean up your place or hire somebody, or if you live in a family, to show hard work? Yeah, Roomba makes it a little bit easier, but sometimes activity and getting up and vacuuming and cleaning helps out a little bit. Okay, so I think the privacy concerns now with everything, one of the biggest components is, your computers, your Bluetooth, your connection, your third-party data sharing, all of this. And it's not just your phone, it's not just the TV, it's not just Roomba. The phones have, health information that they're tracking, your watch tracking, it has medication tracking, it has all these other things that are so personal to you that it's kind of disturbing areas. And I don't know how you guys feel, but I know, Ricardo, you work in marketing, so it's all about data and it's all about finding patterns and habits and building a profile on people. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what all of this plays into your lives.
First of all, this is called a Faraday bag.
Oh,
And
I
this
have
is a
two of those.
bag that if you put your phone in here and it completely kills all the signals. And I've had one of these since pre-COVID.
Unfortunately, Ricardo had to get up and leave to turn off his AI blow-up doll because he doesn't have Faraday cage big enough for it. But yeah.
Yeah, and let me tell you, that doll wasn't cheap, so I like to take care of that doll. What was I going to say?
Well, Elon tells it what to do. So
yeah, that's weird. Now I'm not using the doll anymore.
Yeah, you're
so
taking
on
a
the
little too far now.
On the Roomba thing. So one of the things I found out too, and this is what, like, even pre-pandemic about Roomba, which I thought was pretty disturbing, was even before they had cameras, as soon as they were like Wi-Fi connectable, Roomba was actually going around and taking your square footage data of your rooms, and then Roomba was reselling it to real estate companies, developers, insurance companies, and builders. And so, yeah, and then they used it as a cost-cutting a method. And so, like,
because then you don't have to hire some
survey
appraiser
exactly.
to come and do it.
Yeah. Plus, it lets you know how many square feet are available, like how to price. I mean, is it useful? Sure, but I think the question here is that, like, a lot of these things are being done without the how do you call it? Like, when you go to court, they're like beyond a reasonable doubt. I think when you agree to let somebody use your data, it should be in an event that's beyond reasonable doubt that it's obvious, right? Like, it shouldn't just be a line. Like, it should be a specific, separate agreement that says one thing only, and that's, will you sell my data, or what are you doing with my data? And and if companies want to charge less at the counter for that, like, hey man, you could save 20% if you let Roomba sell your data. Sure. I'd rather it that way rather than it just be blanketed around everyone and then some people find out and some people don't. But I do think that, if we were to make a rule that made it blatantly obvious of what was being done and the people were okay with that, I would even be okay with financially incentivizing that. Like, if you want to give up your data to acquire something for less of a cost, then that's your personal decision. I think that's a very personal decision for each individual. I don't want to get in the way of that. I don't think companies should be automatically aggregating and using your data without you, especially if they're making a profit off it, because that is technically stealing. And so the other thing I knew about, which I kind of forgot, so I'm going to try to bring it back easier, was Vizio televisions. So if you guys look up what happened with Vizio televisions, Vizio television was one of the first TVs, and they were selling these plasma TVs. Remember, they were super cheap, right? And remember, like, LaDainian Tomlinson. So it turns out that each one of these TVs, smart TVs, was taking photographs every fucking 10 seconds. And they were selling that information off to whoever. And they were even telling the investors at the investor meeting that's how they kept the cost low. And they got shut the fuck down. But can you imagine how many people having sex on their couch or whatever the fuck you're doing, and Vizio television is doing it? And if you agree to that, I think that's fine. Like, I don't really care. I could give a shit. If you want to watch me have sex on my couch, I don't really want to know you. That's weird. I don't really care. It's not going to get me in any trouble. I'm not doing anything in my house that's going to be, a big deal.
At least give me a play-by-play and give me some tips.
Exactly. I would like some feedback.
I want some feedback.
I don't want to see it because I don't want to see it because I would feel so bad for that person. That's with Ricardo. Honestly,
that upside down Mexican rumchata move was not the right.
Think about this: if he pisses
upside down Mexican
shower,
horchata is one of my best moves. What are you talking about?
If he pisses in somebody's shower, he's a grimy person.
It gets grimy over here. So I agree with you, Mike. And I do believe there has to be more pushback from consumers. You know, and I think a way to concede and come to some sort of an agreement with the manufacturers would be to offer some sort of a financial discount. Like, hey man, I want the iPhone that doesn't track anything, right? Like no, you know, like the microphone turns off, and that's going to cost me, maybe it's going to cost me $2,000 instead of 1,000. Sort of the way that you can pay your way out of advertising in that same fashion.
Yeah, but
And if I can't, and I still want the iPhone, right? There's phones that cost $10. So if you're spending money on an iPhone, it's because you want it. You don't fucking need it. Okay. You can get a phone for cheap.
So,
And so if you want to do that and you give away your data, then that's fine. But you're consenting upon purchase, not each individual thing that I use on my phone. How's that?
so the problem is that it's already being talked about and nobody gives a crap. So like,
yeah,
I don't remember if it was last year, whatever. I don't remember which Rogan podcast it was. So if somebody wants to look it up later. Rogan specifically read the disclaimer for TikTok, and it was like, "We are sharing your information," or whatever it was. It was like I was kind of terrified. Honestly,
All your entire phone. They have access to everything on the phone.
I still don't have TikTok as a result. And
yeah.
and Joe Rogan has the biggest podcast. He has like whatever 30 million or 50 million subscribers, whatever it is, right? Everybody heard that, and yet TikTok is still the biggest platform for social media, and there's tons of people. And I forget who it was, but he's basically saying we're giving up our freedom for dopamine.
Well,
Yeah.
I also
It's
think
a drug, man. They're doing it because it's drug.
Well,
It's
Well,
like
so for
It is a
me,
drug.
hold on, let me just say this. Let me just say this for a second. For me, it's an ethics issue, right? I think if you're going to use these products, right? If you're going to get a TV or a Roomba, not in the fine print, I want to know because you have to read the fine print to find these things out because they bury it. I'm an attorney. They bury this stuff deep down. And they think they can get away because they have a consent clause or they say this and you agree to it. My whole thing is when I'm buying that product, I want to know it, not buried. I want it there. I want you to be able to tell me what you're using my data for, what this product can contain. And that's the problem. It's an ethics issue with these companies. And quite frankly, I don't think a lot of this technology is really helping us go forward or move forward with certain things. I think it's actually a step back. It's like Chris said, a dopamine because it's the, oh, I got it, or this helps me, or whatever the case is, or I'm part of this group. But it doesn't really improve our life. It actually takes us a step back with some of this stuff. Like there's a certain sports apparel company, right, who's coming out or has been doing R&D on t-shirts like this, where when you go to the gym, it records your body temperature, tries to record your heartbeat, your blood pressure, all of these things. Okay.
What about when you're pooping?
You know, so sometimes I can't go back into the other room.
sometimes
All the time. But so their guys is and what they say is it's going to help you health wise. We can track everything. We can give you this data. We can compare you to everybody else. Okay. And we can turn around and tell you, oh, if you have this problem, you shouldn't be having this problem at this age. That's a problem. I do doing that. I don't need that shirt. There's a reason why you go to a doctor. There's a reason why you have tests done. Okay. I don't need a apparel company telling me what's wrong so they can take my data, build a profile on me, and then sell it to the medical care providers or the medical health insurance companies and carriers or whoever that can give me a product that saves me or quote unquote tries to save me, or a pharmaceutical company that's going to market me for a certain drug that's supposed to help me for those problems. I don't want that. I don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should be able to opt out, Chris.
Well, I was going to say the reason why I brought that up with the whole Rogan thing is because it's going, the information is out there and people are still signing the disclaimer, right? And so what you're asking for is government involvement, right? We just had a conversation about the FTC. This is something that they would have to come up with a rule for. And so
this is an issue that they should take to put it. This is an issue.
Devil's advocate.
I would rather have this rule than the fucking no review bombing rule. That's
hey, I'm not saying we should pick who gets to see what. I'm just saying that you need more federal government involvement if you want to fix this problem without
Okay.
saying, I don't know, maybe making people go back to church or something, whatever it is, right?
Well,
Because that's the only way to fix it.
it's yeah. So it has to do with a it has to do with all consumers. So this is a consumer issue that they should be involved in. And it's more about the disclosures of what the products and what the information is. Now, Apple got ahead of this game with the App Store, where they talk about what this app records. And it's like when you're ready to download the app, you scroll down and it says, okay, this company might use this for this. It might take this air contacts. It might record this. And the reason why they're using it is the X, Y, and Z. Apple got ahead of this game and they've done a good job. But people still, when it comes not just to your phone, which there's a lot of gray area in certain perspectives, but when it comes to all these other products, like there was an issue years ago with Alexa listening to conversations. Okay, if you're in an emergency, we have the right to step in and call the police. Well, how the hell do you know if I'm in an emergency? What,
Yeah.
you
They
listen to
just
my
know.
conversations?
They just know.
Yeah.
Well, they know
Yeah.
what your heart rate says, so your heart rate's freaking out. So
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
concerned.
so there's yeah.
So I think pushback from the consumers, and the tough part is that consumers in a consumer society, they vote with their dollars, right? Like we've seen this Woody
Mhm.
Harrelson video. I don't know if you've seen it, where he basically points out all of the disgusting things that are in our food, and he says, look, the only way to vote is with your dollar. So if you don't want GMOs in your food, stop buying foods with GMOs. And it's an
Yep.
old video of Woody Harrelson, and like nobody did it. Nobody did it. Like nobody's pushing back on these companies with their dollars. You can call and request, but like ultimately, like the way that you do it is by not a boycotting, but just selecting something else from the environment. And that's the beauty of capitalism, is that we should have more than one selection for almost everything that we need, so that in case something like this happens, we can vote and send a clear financial message to that producer that they need to go ahead and revisit their product.
well, I mean, the
Then
entire purpose of the social media thing, right? In my mind, the best functionality of social media is a platform for the people, right? To talk, to communicate. That's the best part about it.
Town hall, yeah,
That,
town hall.
connection,
but they don't. But that doesn't
connection.
exist. That doesn't exist. There is no platform where all 330 million people can communicate. It's not something that's out there. I mean, we would like to.
OnlyFans.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, though.
Naked basketball players.
There isn't a place for that. There isn't a place that isn't motivated by money, where there's no bias, where there's no just open forum communication. And until that exists, this is always going to be a problem. Until you can go on there and say, hey, whatever, this is a problem, and it gets reinforced by another, 300 real people, not bots. And then somebody will throw out a study that reinforces your point or whatever it is, and the information is out there, and then people can make a choice. People can make an informed decision. Right now, you can't. I mean, since COVID, I don't even know what's upside down, what's left, right. I mean, north might not be north anymore at this point. Like, and I know that the poles switch every few years with magnetics and all this stuff, but still, like, it's ridiculous. It's gotten to the point now where you can't go online and find anything without questioning whether or not it's somehow biased. I mean, now we're seeing that peer-reviewed studies are lying, essentially. They're doing exactly what Ricardo said at the beginning, that they're purposefully skewing the results to favor whatever company funded their research to get an answer that they want, and then we find out later that, oh well, it actually wasn't, it killed babies or whatever, right? And then we just brush it off, and nobody really gets it punished, and it just motivates them to do it again because you can't.
We could. So the issue is that's been going on for years with companies and things of that magnitude. Like,
Doesn't make
I think
it
it was a
okay.
cigarette company. But that's my point. The cigarette company did for years, they funded medical doctors to create surveys and studies that resulted in their favor, stating that smoking wasn't bad. Well, let me tell you something, that's not true. So, yeah, going back to the topic, I definitely think there needs to be intervention. I definitely think there needs to be, you know, um,
Oversight.
disclosure,
I
oversight.
think
I think
oversight,
that's
yeah.
important. But the problem is you have to deal with lobbyists. Your problem is you have to deal with funding because these companies are so big nowadays that, politicians cater to companies because they need money to stay in office. They need money and they need to uh, protect their interest.
Protect their interest. That's a great statement. That's a devilish statement, guys. Good one, man. So if you're listening to this, don't do anything weird near anything electronic, unless that electronic thing is purposefully used to do the weird thing. That's the exception.
Ricardo.
I quit.
But other than that, I think it's good that people be a little bit more aware that even though some of these things are recording, so we call them useless fractals of information. When you aggregate these things, the data points can give a lot of behavioral information that you wouldn't notice about yourself that a lot of these companies might know. And my example for this is now TikTok, and I don't know if you heard this, what TikTok has been knowing, I don't know if it was TikTok or one of them, can know whether you're gay before you even come out. And that was an article that they were talking about because based on your viewing patterns. And so that's a very simple thing. And that's why you shouldn't, hang out with a behavioralist unless you're really comfortable with yourself.
Well, the military's been doing that for years. I mean, it's human intel, SIGINT. I mean, all this stuff is just collection. And they've been determining, all kinds of events forever to find out who's going to assassinate who and who's going to blow up who by just piecing randomly, seemingly random information together and painting a picture. And the more data you have, the more answers you can get.
Clear that picture.
Yeah,
absolutely. Good one, guys. All right, I got some topics. They're a little bit on the lighter side, but they're of my concern.
Go Ducks.
Go Ducks. All right, where are we
Number
at?
one team in the country right now.
Okay, guys. What the hell is going on
here? I had to at some point. That's why I'm wearing the.
You're right. What's up
there
with tipping?
All right, guys.
What's up with tipping?
Here's
the cow tipping.
Yeah, cow tipping.
Or
financial
tipping.
It's just cow tipping. That's all Ricardo knows.
Financial tipping. I mean, we got some good financial stuff. I think we covered a lot of really good financial stuff in the previous 2 episodes. I'm glad we're talking a little bit more about some of these sort of longer term things. I think there's enough media for the next 2 weeks that's going to talk about some of the other bullshit going on all over the place. But it's so for me, and this is really mostly a personal question because I get confused and embarrassed. And it's what I've noticed is that everybody that's got an electronic checkout is now, by some social contract that I didn't agree to, become part of the tipping class. Right. And then, I've never experienced this, but if the guy who off the street washes my windows and I give him $20 and he hands me an iPad, I'm not going to, so when is it appropriate to tip is really what I want to know, because I've noticed that the tipping thing is everywhere, everywhere, man. And so I really would like to figure out where in the social contract it really lies, because obviously the people that are gaining from the tipping are going to push the envelope to get more. And so when is it really appropriate to tip? I'd like to know when you guys think it's one from each of you. I'd like to know when it's appropriate to tip and when it's appropriate not to tip.
I like to live by the golden rule. So
the golden
I just tip, man. I mean, I try to tip more than the normal for the most part. I don't really.
Do you tip at Starbucks?
No. I don't really. The places that when you go and you swipe your card or whatever, and it asks you. It depends. It depends on the place. It depends on the person. But most of the time, if I'm just buying a coffee for $4, whatever, I'll tip whatever it is, $1. I mean, whatever, just because
25%. What?
I have money. I have money, and I don't care.
Wait,
if I was look, man,
you have money.
Karma is a bitch. Don't be a fucking Don't be so. I can't say it, but don't be so ruthless with your money that you can't just give it. Now, I'm not saying that you should go throw $100 bills at homeless people, but I just tip, man. I try to tip more than you're supposed to, but what I do hate sometimes is like some of these things that aren't normally tipping, like Uber, and they like say, would you like to tip 25%? But there is an option where you can just say, you can put $1 or $5 or whatever it is. And so I don't like to be manipulated. So the other thing
Mhm.
that I've actually seen this before. I've gone to a restaurant and they have the suggested tipping at the bottom. Take a look at that. Do the math yourself. That number is not always accurate,
Oh yeah,
right?
I had a restaurant occasion. I think was it with you, Chris? No, where were we? I think I might have been in Wisconsin. And where we had a party of like 15 people, right? And they brought us the bill, and at the bottom of the bill it said tip and then total,
I
right? And so like the person that was paying was about to tip, and I grabbed the bill, and then I looked and I realized that there was an auto gratuity already
Oh,
in the
already
bill,
in the thing.
and
Yeah.
the server didn't tell us that it was auto grat and ran away and dropped the bill. Basically, that person is calling you an idiot, right? And that's what really ticks me off, is that that's really greedy and misleading and
Yeah.
not a symbol of quality or anything. It's just a cheap way. Like, you need $10, then ask your friend, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
that that happened when I went to the Wet Republic in Vegas when we were popping bottles out of Cabana. Like we spent a decent amount of money, and the gratuity was already, which was a significant tip. Adam, it said tip again. This was years ago when I was in my younger age. I don't do that anymore.
Uh-huh,
But
sure.
sad.
yeah, but I remember saying that, and but what they prey on is people being intoxicated, though, that
Even
you are
worse.
not paying attention. Yeah. Um, Going back to your question, do I tip? Well, it depends on the circumstances. To be honest with you, I'm gonna be straightforward. When I'm going to a restaurant, absolutely I tip. But I don't tip tax included on the bill itself, because the tax is not part of the service that's being provided. So that's me basically paying double or an extra amount on my behalf. Um, Go to Starbucks, depends. Daily thing. I don't like when it gives you the suggested amounts. Like, are you going to tip 12, 15, 18, or 25% or whatever the suggested amount? I can't stand that. If I'm buying a slice of pizza at a pizzeria, and it asks me for a tip and it shows 25%, I'm going to say no. I don't give a tip in that circumstance. It depends on the services. But the tipping's gotten out of control because the cost of everything is increasing, and a lot of companies are including their increased cost in the price of the item. So now we're
Yeah.
paying double on it. So I'm a little fundamentally,
Like, I think
um,
DoorDash is like that, where like if you go to a like McDonald's and then it's like
mhm,
$5 menu, and then if you go home and you open the same menu, it's $8 through DoorDash plus the
yeah,
delivery fee plus the tip to the guy. And then it ends up being like sometimes 35, 40%. And I know that's in the name of convenience, and I can just walk to the fucking store and get the shit
yeah,
myself. Right. But I do think there's got to be some sort of protection against companies that bias against people that don't tip. And so I talked to a DoorDash driver, and this person told me that they literally don't look at the orders by time. They look at them who tipped them the largest, and that's who's going to get their stuff first. And so I believe that that's not very fair, especially if you're already paying a delivery fee to the platform and an inflated price. I think that, the company should take care of the drivers, and then if they get here in a quicker than I expected or something, I'll give them a tip when they get here. But if most of the time it becomes extremely dangerous to tip for something that hasn't been performed, right? Like, I'll tip my surgeon after the bypass, not before the bypass.
yeah. Very good analogy. Very good analogy.
Thanks,
I
guys.
just think it's gotten a little out of control, though. Quite
Yeah.
frankly, like
And
I
my
if
just don't
I
like it. I
if
don't like
I
it when it's expected.
what do you
that's the next thing. If there's this expectation that you have to tip,
Right.
and sometimes Like the worst is when they give you the screen and they flip it over to you and they're like staring at you to see if you tip. I look them dead in the eye and I'm like, no. Like they're trying to like pressure you in certain sectors, and I do not like that at all.
I throw it back at them. Like, you know, when people stop you and you're like walking and they're like, "Hey, do you want to sign this petition?" Like, what I do is I start asking them out. I'm like, "Oh, are you available on Friday? Do you want to grab a drink?" Because that's the same type of intrusion that you're doing to me, right? Like, I wasn't primed or expected to make a donation. I was just trying to walk down the street, and just like you weren't primed or expected to be hit on or asked out, right? And so, like, I like to do
Mhm.
that because that's it shows them that how intrusive it is, you know. Like, and I give and I donate and I do things, but I'm never walking down the street thinking, "Oh my gosh, like who should I donate to?" Right? You know, like it never works out that way. And I'm glad that they're out there, but there is a little bit of intrusiveness with some of the things that are going on that I think it's starting to get a little bit out of hand. And I try not to tip unless somebody's physically doing something that I can't do myself. Like if I'm at a restaurant and I'm sitting down, I'm tipping because I don't want to get up and get the shit from the fucking kitchen myself, right? But if I
Mhm.
go to a store and you grab a candy bar off a shelf behind you for me, like I'm not going to tip you. Do you like just put the
Mhm.
candy bar so that I can grab it and check out on my own, right? And so my rule is like no tipping at counters, no tipping at coffees. I like to tip for service, right? And I don't usually tip for something where there's a fee that's included in the price of whatever I'm getting. That's like a service fee because that's like if I order eggs and you give me two hard boiled eggs, right? And you charge me $5, your tip is in there, buddy, because that's a 60-cent thing that I just bought from you. So if you're not making enough money, you should be talking to your employer, right? And I think what it's doing is it's skirting the responsibility from the employees to say, "Hey, you need to be paying us more," or going out and finding a better job and saying, "Okay, well instead I'm going to try to just make more money from hustling people that show up." And so that actually, like, I think kills upward mobility and it kills the communication towards a manager who and the companies who probably are underpaying their employees and saying, "Well, deal with it because you're still going to get tipped or whatever."
Yeah.
Yeah, the industries that that for me, like the industries that are supposed to be tipping, right? Like service, essentially service industries. I mean, like I said, I always tip, but the industries that aren't service industries, like the industries that didn't at some point have tips and now that have tips, and it's essentially a function of the company trying not to pay their employees more money. That stuff bothers me, kind of for the same reason that you just said, but also because like it doesn't incentivize the people to make it entertaining, right? Like, I mean, the whole reason why we tip waitresses is if they like got our order right, they did the thing and we got everything, and like it was fun, right? But then we got to this thing where it's just like, oh well, if I just serve you, that you should pay me more, and then it's like, oh well, if I'm your Uber driver and I got you there safely, it's like, well, we didn't pay taxi drivers to get us there on time. We pay them to break the speed limit and talk to us the whole time, right? That's why you tip a taxi driver. Tip
Yeah.
him because he's breaking the law for you to get there faster and then making it fun.
Yeah,
If you're
like
just driving me from point A to B and you're doing it 3 miles under the speed limit, I'm not tipping you. Get out of here.
yeah, like where I would tip? Like if I was flying and the airplane pilot got me there 30 minutes early, that's worth fucking tip.
Hell
Totally
yeah,
worth the tip.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I want to break the sound barrier. I'll give you some extra money for sure.
yeah. I
Make the
agree.
pig come off the plane.
I agree. All right, guys. I also have another one. This one is
Is it? Oh, it's not Diddy again. Okay, good.
no Diddy, no Diddy. He's got enough trouble. So settlement syndrome, guys. This is a syndrome that I've kind of noticed as a pattern of behavior. Mike, I'd like your opinion on this too. Chris knows a little bit about this as well. And so what I've realized, and I want to know whether this is a reflection of society or whether we need to do something about this, is that what's happening is that businesses, right, and human beings even, right, have come under this thing that I like to call settlement syndrome. And what that means is that like the new play to succeed is to do something in a non-ethical but effective way that may or may not harm consumers to gain a huge market share to make enough money that you're still going to be profitable, even if you get sued, and pay the settlement and then walk away and still do more harm than good, but make a profit. And so I've seen this settlement syndrome sort of become rampant. And so, like, an example of this, Mike, you're shaking your head, would be like the Sackler family with opioids.
Was just
Right.
gonna say that. I was just gonna say that.
Right. So, like, they were, they went after them. They fined them an insane amount of money. You know what I'm saying? But they still made like
6
$10
billion,
billion.
I think it was.
And so I'm
Yeah, they
seeing a
got
lot
fined
of
6 billion, I think it is.
right. So I'm seeing this in a microcosm too, right? And it's almost like I'm seeing it in individuals as well, where we're starting to become more comfortable asking for forgiveness than actually doing things the right way. And I'm curious to see if you guys have seen this anywhere in your guys' experience.
Well, it's a constant pattern. It's called the risk versus reward pattern. It's financial analysis that happen with corporations. It's analysis that people, and technically the way it works is, okay, if we get caught, if we get hit, are we going to be fined for this? But can we still be profitable at the end of the day? There was issues with, I believe it was Volkswagen that did this, but they made it, and they actually lost more money in the end. JP Morgan, I believe, or not JP Morgan, I think it was Chase or JP Morgan got in trouble with mortgages. When the mortgage crisis was going on, they did the same exact thing because it was predatorial, behavior. Companies do this on a daily basis. Sackler family do this. It's definitely corporate thing, which is an ethics thing, into a individual thing. And we can talk about that. Let's talk about it as it relates to cheating in relationships. We think we can get away with it. We get caught cheating, and then we turn around and we go back and we kind of apologize, but we feel comfortable because we know that person that we were in a relationship, we can get over on them. And okay, we get a pass, and you're still in that relationship. It's a multitude of areas, and it's a psychological thing that we nowadays uh, we play victims in a lot of ways. We blame others, which plays into this. We don't take self accountability. We think we can skirt the rules, and it's all fine. It's okay, but it's correlated into society in a lot of ways because everybody feels nowadays that there's an issue with the moral fabric of a lot of people. There's an issue with candidates, politicians, CEOs, businesses, and on the individual level. This is not the first time. It's been going on for a long period of time in in a lot of perspectives, but it's more prevalent nowadays. I hate to say that it's more prevalent in the society that we live in on an individual level anymore.
Nice. Good feedback. Chris, you seen anything like this going on around you?
I mean, you keep blaming the boomers for everything, but it's a boomer thing. They built this world where admitting that you're wrong can be financially devastating instead of being supported. So like saying that you made a mistake or that you did something wrong, and like you learn from it should be like cherished, right? Should be motivated. Um, but we have created all these rules and all these laws. And like you're a lawyer, I mean, like anytime at any point you say like, oh, I did something wrong, and the lawyers come out and they sue the pants off you, and it's end of the story, right? So nowadays everybody's just playing the game. I mean, insurance companies have been doing this forever, right? It's like, you know, how much do we think we're going to have to pay in settlements versus how much is it going to cost to recall the product, and
Fight
then
Club.
whatever the math comes out to be, yeah, Fight Club, whatever the math comes out to be is what they choose to do, and it's incentivized to do it that way. Um, I mean, the boomers have kind of built that structure, unfortunately, and that's the world that we live in now. I mean, we could talk about this more all day, but it's the same thing. Like, where do you draw the line with how you enforce mechanisms? What's the enforcement mechanism here? Is it going to be federally involvement, or are we going to just keep playing the game where we hope that people are nice because they should be nice? I mean, it's it's the shopping cart thing, man. So it's just another example of the shopping cart thing. Do you put the shopping cart back, or do you leave it in the street and let somebody hit it? And obviously, we all know that you're a better person if you put the shopping cart back. But
I
there's
take it with
nothing.
me.
There's no law saying
To
that you
my
can't
shopping
put.
cart now.
There's no law saying you can't just leave it wherever you want to leave it, right? And you don't want to make a law, really, to make you. But like, what we need is parents to, beat their children again. No, I'm kidding. They need is parents to,
Well,
like,
it's you hit it. You hit it.
Sorry.
It's a morality thing. It starts at home. I hate to put it that way. It starts at home because you know the rights and wrongs. If you're taught what's right and what's wrong, then you have to make that decision. You have to be in your feelings. You have to understand that and be convinced and have a moral fabric, not to go to the other side. And that's the problem. I think there's a moral fabric problem with this. And you know, yeah, corporations do it, but on a personal level, you have with those decisions at the end of the day. If you cheat on somebody, okay, you have to live with that. And yeah, people look at it like, yeah, okay, the relationship's over, or she accepts me back, or whoever accepts me back. At the end of the day, that's not the right thought process. Why are you cheating? Why did you feel like this in a relationship? Why do you think she's gonna or he's gonna accept you back in that relationship? Those are all things that start. That's a thing that is a problem with yourself, and it's scary to think that people on a day basis make those decisions, because when it comes to real life crisis where they're really put into situations where they have to make decisions, what decision are they going to make? What are they going to do? So it's a moral fabric thing, and quite frankly, I think it also starts with this podcast with Ricardo as being the host MC. We have to really assess, Chris, you and I, if we on the opposite agreeing to do this with them. That's something that we
Dark
have
side.
to, the dark side.
I like that. I like that. I like that. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I had. I had one more topic, but it's a little broad, and we're pretty much on time. I think we're pretty good, guys. I think we did a good wrap today. Anyone have any other questions or comments? That you wanted to discuss, or?
Well, I mean, we got off of it already, and I don't want to go. Maybe it sparks some more conversation, but biologically speaking, in the household, men are supposed to prepare their children to go out into the world, and it's not happening as much as it used to happen anymore, right? And it's not to say that women are bad. It's just to say that that's not their function in the childbearing. That's not their responsibility, right? And so when that responsibility gets outsourced to like school and to like coaches, and that those people aren't doing it, then it doesn't happen. And so that's where we are, I think, in a lot of ways in society.
So yeah,
today.
so like what Mike was saying, like how it starts at the home. So like it seems like that everyone is just more distracted and doing their own thing and not doing enough contributing to the community, to the fabric that was raising and creating happy, healthy human beings. And it's not any one thing in particular, but it seems like it's all these little data points of distraction that have become commonplace in society, that have sort of accumulated to create some of these pathologies that we're seeing.
Now they have dual income households. You have dual income households where both parents work, and the expectation is that their children are being taken care of, essentially by a third party, and that quality has lowered over time, right? I mean, there's just a lower quality of care for childcare, for schools, for colleges, for the list goes on and on. The quality is just lowered, and so now that we're outsourcing all of this, raising our children essentially to social media and other platforms, and the quality keeps getting lower and lower and lower. The expectation needs to change, but we have to kind of take, like what Mike was saying earlier, take some responsibility, take some ownership of the things that we have to do, and do it, right? And I don't know why I didn't even make any.
Wow, that's cool.
Whoa!
And that's how you.
That's a sign that you made
Ricardo'd it. I just
That's sign.
recorded it. I just
That's
emphasized
a
my
sign
point
you made
without
a
having
good
to like
point
No,
with that.
no, how do we do
turn
that?
around and pee or whatever.
No, Jeff taught us how to do these things. You can set it up on your Mac camera, Mike, and like if you like, you can code in hand signals, and it'll like give you this like cool.
Yeah, there's like a heart one, right? I
Right,
don't know
do
if I
the
can
how
make
is
a
it?
heart.
It's
There we go.
yeah.
Yay!
I wonder if mine's on.
You guys didn't
No,
tell me this when I was talking about Love Is Blind.
yeah, that was a really good
There's
topic.
like a X one. I don't
Uh,
remember what it is.
All right, well, I'll pull up my last topic. We don't have to talk about it very long, but it's kind of I'll let you guys. So, ancient civilizations, motherfuckers. Ancient civilizations. So, Graham
I'm a
That's
little
Hancock,
another
concerned where we're going to take
Ricardo's
this.
home.
right? I could
It's
tell Mike.
Ricardo's home.
Yes, my home. So I'm a fanatic about this stuff. But there's a new series out, guys. If you're watching on Netflix, it's season 2 of Ancient Civilizations or some shit like that with Graham Hancock. It's really cool. And the premise of this series is that, you know, they've gone around and sort of visited a lot of these archaeological sites and realized that, you know, that some of them are a lot older than they were, and they all have very similar traditions and communication and architecture and all this stuff. And it sort of shows that there might have been like a sort of peak in civilization just before about 11,000 years ago. And this gentleman, Graham Hancock, his theory is that there was sort of an extinction level event or something higher that happened on the Earth about 11,000 years ago that created sort of like like a 1,000-year ice age, and that the things that we're seeing and unearthing now are on the other side of that, right? And so that there was a high civilization that was achieved much longer, much before Egypt or any of those things. And it's all based on the fact that and the reason I bring it up today is because we're about to go into a period of time where the earth goes through the torrid meteor shower, right? And all of these extinction level events, including the one that killed the dinosaurs, happen to happen around the same time. And the earth goes through the torrid meteor shower twice a year, in October and in June. And so we're about to head through this meteor shower. And I think that it's by sheer probability that every once in a while some of these meteors make it into the solar system, get sucked in by the gravitational pull, and they cause these sort of events, and one of the bigger ones being the extinction of the dinosaurs. And the Graham Hancock talks about this one called the Younger Dryas, the one that happened about 11,600 years ago, as the earth going through that meteor shower and a bunch of fragments coming through. And based on the evidence, he doesn't really believe that there were impacts, but there were like these big sort of air explosions bringing in dust and everything, and it made it very difficult, extended a lot, made a lot of the things extinct. And you know, in 1908 there was a huge one that went over Russia, and that one happened at the exact same time as now in October, when we were going through the torrid meteor shower. So my question to you guys is, do you guys think that there is some sort of cyclical phenomenon that happens to the earth every period of time that sort of resets everything? Or do you believe that all of this shit's fucking random? Or is there some sort of cycle that happens that is the reason that we, have cell phones today, but we can't build pyramids, right? And so, like, what do you guys think? Do you think that evolution was nice and smooth like this, or do you feel like there might be sort of some sort of cyclical event that helps everything reset? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, I mean, I honestly can't believe that at some point in the whatever 6 or 7 billion years the Earth has been around, that we haven't, our solar system hasn't passed through some meteor shower. And I mean, you look at the moon, it looks like it's, you know, been hit by several meteors at some point, right? Meteorites, technically. And we obviously have actual meteorites in museums that we've seen hit the Earth. Um, I would say that there's got to be events that happen cyclically, of course, but also just randomly. I mean, the solar systems are moving constantly, and who knows what we pass through. And it's just a matter of luck a lot of times that something doesn't hit us. And That's the kind of the thing that's always bothered me about some of these, environmental issues. I mean, I totally understand recycling, and I think we should make the planet better for ourselves. But I think it's just hubris to think that we are somehow going to stop some of these things from happening. Like it's not going to happen. Like it's just gonna happen. It's gonna suck. And if you survive, great. If you don't, then shit happens. But like it's either gonna rain cats and dogs or rain meteorites or it won't. We don't have a choice. I know it's terrifying. Nobody wants to believe in that kind of stuff. Nobody wants to sit around and kind of dwell on the fact that they don't have control of their future or their children's future. But that's reality. It's just how it is. So maybe Elon's
Well,
right.
let's let
Moving
let's
Mars.
let's this topic really took us down a dark rabbit hole to end it, um, and went very negative. I'm going to have to say that there is a cycle. If you look at everything from our psychological perspective, just in general, we all talk about here on the U.S. things repeat itself. So I would have to say that solar systems, meteorite, there's a system in place as well. The same way there is a solar system, same way there is mechanisms. Now you can go through religious data, you can go through all different things, but I do believe there's kind of cycles in life, like hence why we have it the cycle of life. Why wouldn't that apply to other things? Human, not human, but world, events. There's definitely things that happen. We talk about pandemics, they happen X, Y, and Z, how many years from each other. We talk about, earthquakes and things of that magnitude. There's cycles to all these things. That's why we're able to predict things a little bit closer or more accurate. I wouldn't throw it away that there's cataclysmic events that happen. Um, I don't think we're going to die anytime soon. To clarify our negativity on this, I think
Yeah,
we established technology. I think we've established technology a little bit better now. I think we can predict things a little bit more better. Climate change. I think we can figure out meteors coming closer, impacts. Now, can we prevent them? I don't know that. I'm not an expert in that area. I don't know how we would ever do that. There are other people that have been working on these problems for years, but I definitely do think there's a cycle to a lot of like Earth's issues. If it's just
Call
from
Bruce Willis.
civilization to, yeah. So I definitely do think there's a cycle.
do you think there's a coincidence that the election date is 6 days after every time we pass through this cycle, just in case?
I don't think.
I think you're
I
reading too
don't think
much
that
into it.
was.
It's just a yes or no question.
Ricardo's going down a rabbit. Ricardo's going.
That's
We should put a
that's
poll
the
out. We should put a
Yeah, we
poll
should
out
put
for
a
yeah.
that.
poll out. Yeah, no, that's a rhetorical.
Speaking of it, Mike, the tinfoil hat's coming out, so maybe we didn't make the right choice. So
No, guys.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No. I want it to be very positive. I also want it just to be an opportunity that if you guys like to see meteor showers, this week will be a great, or next week will be a great meteor shower, the torrid one. Most of the time it doesn't hit us, but there's some really good shooting stars to check out. So if you're in an area that's not too light polluted, the week before Halloween is a great time to check out the torrid meteor shower. And most likely, according to Mike, we're not going to die. So it should be pretty safe. But
fingers
thanks,
crossed, people. Fingers
fingers
crossed.
crossed. So thanks for indulging this topic. It's one that's interesting. And if you guys are
Just
out there, check out the Graham Hancock's Ancient Civilization season 2 on Netflix. Shout out Graham Hancock. And I think we're good, man. We're at about 2.5 hours, guys. I think we did a really good show. I want to thank my guests for joining me, Elvis in Indianapolis, Indiana, Mike in New York City, myself, your host, Rico, here in San Diego, California. Want to thank all our viewers for watching. Please hit us up on the comments or email the podcast and let us know if there's any topics or questions that you might want us to discuss or answer. And as always, guys, especially in these times, be safe, be good to your fellow brothers and sisters, look out for each other, and stay cool, and keep your eyes open, guys. Thanks for joining us here on the Almost Patriots podcast, and we'll see you next week at the same time for another show. Bye, guys.